We'll call the meeting to order for Wicomico County Council Legislative Session 2025-04 for February 18, 2025. Those that would like to stand and join us in the Lord's Prayer and Pledge of Allegiance, please do.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Obtain a motion from council to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Second?
Second.
Any discussions or corrections? Seeing none. All those in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Consent agenda is passed unanimously. Good morning, Mr. Benson. How are you?
Morning. First item on the agenda is Legislative Bill 2025-02, which is an act to amend Chapter 37 titled Ethics Law, Article 2 titled Ethics Commission, Section 37-5 titled Ethics Commission to require special legal counsel for the Ethics Commission to avoid a conflict of interest or appearance of a conflict of interest. This bill is here to be introduced. Prior to the bill being introduced, this was submitted to the Maryland State Ethics Commission for their review and comment. The Maryland State Ethics Commission responded and said that they had no comment and they were not opposed to the bill. The purpose of the bill would be to have the Ethics Commission use a special counsel to represent it for issues that come before the Ethics Commission. Currently, the Ethics Commission is represented by the county attorney, and there are instances when the county attorney may have ethics complaints that involve members of the executive branch with which he works. And I believe it's the council's thought that it would be better to have an independent counsel to review to provide legal representation to the Ethics Commission on all matters.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. This time we open the floor for a public hearing on this specific legislative bill 2025-02 in reference to the Ethics Commission. If you have any comments you'd like to make in reference to this bill, come to the podium. Please state your name, your county of residence, and your concerns.
My name's Dan Beebe. I'm from the Sharp
Beebe,
County.
this is in reference to the Ethics Commission
Oh, okay.
legislation. Yeah, I know. That's an easy mistake to make. I understand.
Hi, my name's Paula Donald, Wicomico County. And if you can explain to the public how you can get on the commission other than a lawyer who is the county lawyer, but is there like a process that you can get on some of these commissions to be part of one of these teams that need to be a team from the public to get on the commission? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Benson?
The county executive makes an appointment, and that appointment is confirmed by the council.
Mr. Benson?
Hi, Mikkel Darlene, Wicomico County. This is a little poignant for me to come back up here. It was almost a year ago, March, I think 19, last year. I came up before this council and I talked about the county executive making a phone call to me in which she yelled and screamed, belittled, intimidated, and told me to not come to county councils or my community anymore. I felt like this was an egregious violation of ethics. I came here, I laid it before the council, I asked for relief on it. A year later, no actions happened. Nothing has, there was no censure. Life went on. In that time, we continued to fight through the issue that we were having that we wanted to have resolved. And in that time, our community continued to be disparaged, put down, and we continued to face what I believe to be a series of ethical violations. Eventually, I took it upon myself to try to figure out how to file a grievance. And I'm not sure if you guys know, or anybody here, it's an incredibly difficult process. There's no clear-cut path. When you go on the ethics website, it says you have to dig. You've got to go into the manual. You have to read the manual. And when you read the manual, it tells you that you have to get a form from the county attorney who works for the county executive. You have to go in person and get the form. You can't download it. You can't print it. And then you have to return it to them, all of which is cumbersome, intimidating, and scary, especially when you're dealing with people who you feel are putting you at risk or in danger. So this process, as it stands, it's not open. It's not accessible. I hope that this is a step in the right direction. I think that it's very necessary for us to have separate counsel. But I also wonder, will that make a difference in the process of knowing how to file a grievance? Will it make a difference in how you get the forms? How can we streamline this? How can we make this more available so that when these grievances happen, regular citizens have a chance to address it? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will take that into consideration. Thank you. Any other comments in reference to Legislative Bill 2025-02? That being said, that concludes the public hearing on Legislative Bill 2025-02. Entertain a motion from council to approve Legislative Bill 2025-02.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Cannon, I would suggest we schedule a work session and review the process for filing an ethics complaint.
In reference to what was just shared.
Yes, in reference to just
Ms. Turley, if you're
share,
making
so
that.
we can, make it an easier process for the citizens. I think would be good.
Councilman Holloway. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call. Correct, Ms. Turley?
Correct.
All those in favor of Legislative Bill 2025-02, say aye. Opposed, nay. We'll begin with Councilman Holloway.
Aye.
Councilman Hastings.
Aye.
Councilman Wynn.
Aye.
Councilwoman Shields.
Aye.
Councilman Baker.
Aye.
Vice President Merritt.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Legislative Bill number 2025-02 passes unanimously. Mr. Benson?
Second item is a consideration of the veto of Legislative Bill 2025-01. And under the charter, the executive has 21 days to approve or veto legislation. The legislation in question was passed on February 4th. Yesterday, the county executive vetoed the legislation 2025-01. In the charter, the council, once a veto is issued, the council must take up the veto not later than its next legislative session day. And if it chooses to take it up, the council may reconsider the bill. So the veto was entered yesterday. Today is the next legislative bill. Consequently, today is the day the council must reconsider the veto.
Very much. Now, so what I need to do is entertain a motion from council to reconsider Legislative Bill 2025-01 in response to the executive's veto.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor of reconsidering the Legislative Bill 2025-01, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion is carried. Legislative Bill 2025-01 is now under reconsideration by a 6-1 vote. At this point in time, we will have a discussion on the bill in itself.
There would need to be, there would
Yes.
need to be a motion. If the council is going to actually reconsider it, you need to have a motion to reconsider, and that motion to reconsider has to be seconded.
Yeah, it's very confusing. We made a motion to reconsider. We made a motion to reconsider it.
I understand that, but I mean, you reconsidered the veto, that puts the bill back before the council. So the issue now is whether the council wants to reconsider the bill, make changes to the bill. If you want to make changes to it, you need to make a formal motion to reconsider. Someone from the council who was on the winning side, who voted for it, would need to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to reconsider.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to reconsider.
Second.
All right, discussion, correct. Thank you. Correct, Mr. Benson?
Yes, just for
I
clarification
understand.
purposes, a motion to reconsider is a motion that is recognized by Robert's Rules of Order. The council does not use Robert's Rules of Order as its formal rules of procedure, but it is a motion that is recognized under Robert's Rules. And a motion to reconsider must be made by a member of the council who voted in favor of it. The motion must be seconded. If the motion to reconsider passes, the council takes up the original motion as if it was just before the vote was taken. In essence, the motion to reconsider voids the previous action of passing the motion. If you take up the motion, pass the motion, then at that point, a motion can be made to amend the bill, and the council could proceed to amend the bill as originally presented.
The next vote we take will be a motion by roll call vote as a supermajority to override the veto or not to override the veto, correct?
Well, if you haven't already done that you need to override the veto.
I'll follow your lead, okay?
I mean,
It's a bit unprecedented.
I thought you voted to reconsider.
It was a 6-1, but it'd be good to do it by roll call.
To override the veto, or?
This would be, the motion is to adopt the bill as originally, approve the bill as originally adopted, which is overriding the veto.
Okay.
Okay, after discussion.
Right.
Understood. Again, we'll follow your lead. You just let us know, okay? So at this point in time, we're on discussion about the original legislative bill. Yes.
I guess I'll go first. I was the member that originally, I guess said that it should be 1,000 feet, the 1,000-foot rule. After speaking with many people and realizing, I believe when you make a mistake, you got to own it. I made a mistake on that 1,000-foot. It would be near impossible for any existing kennel owner or someone who wanted to get into the kennel business to be able to adhere to that 1,000-foot rule. So with that being said, now that I know that we can fix this ourselves, that's what I intend on doing with my vote, and that's where I'm at. But the 1,000-foot is a no-go for me.
Good. James?
Yeah, when I got back in town, I just had to realize that this had to have been a mistake, and I just couldn't believe that anyone would have done this on purpose. So I do appreciate the recognizing that and trying to make it better.
I think we all realized the error here literally the day after the last council meeting. And I can't speak for everybody up here, but I know I was on the phone literally the next morning and have been on the phone for 2 weeks trying to right a wrong. Not sure why this veto came in, not understanding why you would veto something that was announced on Friday that's coming up for reconsideration, but it is what it is. We're going to fix it.
A statement where I prepared,
John,
Yes.
before you read your statement.
Go ahead, Joe.
I'm sorry. Planning and zoning worked on this for over a year. Folks went to planning and zoning meetings. Council's worked on it for a long time. We've taken a year or more on this. And yes, we made a mistake. We own that. But we also had the county executive staff sitting at that table that never said a word to us about that, whether we were doing right or wrong. So it took a year to mess this up, but we're going to fix it within 2 weeks. And I appreciate everybody that's reached out to us civilly. Conversations I've had with many people, emails, the civil emails I've had some nasty emails. But, we have to make it right. And this isn't the first time this has happened. And I don't think anybody in this room, in the audience, or at this council table can sit there and say that you've never made a mistake. So we're going to fix it.
Sure.
You have the,
A statement, I wrote it out because it got to be too much to sort of like ad lib at the table and make sure I didn't leave out any issues or concerns whatsoever. But in regard to the kennel matter, the county council, we've been working, as been said before, we've been working diligently actually to reconsider the amended kennel bill that was passed on February 4th. Jeff said we actually began working on a revision the Wednesday following that meeting. Due to council members' individual concerns as well as discussions with those who are associated with the kennel industry, I think you'll find today that we've come up with a much better revised version, which will put in place a series of updated restrictions that are much more acceptable to kennel owners and citizens alike. Though it's not a perfect system, this is the legislative process, one in which misunderstandings can occur, but solutions can be found with proper resources and reconsideration. But you do have to allow the process in itself to play out. Keep in mind, the majority of decisions we make at this table are based on the recommendations from our attorneys and staff. And of course, this council, as was acknowledged today, shares in that responsibility as well. So during our February 4th legislative session, we felt compelled to move forward with what was a 1,000-foot buffer to address what we felt at the time was the public's concerns. We also understood at the time that should there be any concerns in regard to passing the bill, we had sufficient time, in other words, 3 years to be exact, to make any necessary corrections. We witnessed a very similar scenario not even a year ago when we authorized increases in tipping fees, only to discover through partners such as Seagull Disposal that the waste industry might be seriously compromised if we continued with that legislation. Again, this industry had not been included nor vetted for the potential unintended consequences that might befall them. But we addressed those concerns very promptly because that's what we do as a legislative body. And everything now is in place in concert with with the entire industry. So this council is taking measures today, no different than we did a year ago. We're correcting an oversight made during the legislative process because that is the legislative process, that is the democratic process. Now, what this council has learned from all this and from this day forward, and we will pledge that prior to any piece of legislation passing at this desk, we will have all assurances in place to verify all data that comes before us, and we will not assume anything. A couple of assurances I can give you is that this council has always been business friendly and always will be, and that the public was never in danger of losing the kennel industry, despite the accusations that were perpetrated through social media, blog sites, and local podcasts, in my impression, as an attempt to simply vilify the council. This is why, as a council, we don't condone legislation through social media. Our responsibility as elected officials, we feel, is to lead the public and not to mislead the public by engaging in such spurious content. I find it somewhat abhorrent that the public was driven to such a frenzy that some were even convinced that their only recourse was to take their hard-earned money to retain legal representation. They felt they actually had to hire attorneys to defend themselves from this council and this process. And not being familiar with the political process, I can understand that. Unfortunate, but I can understand it. But we're here today to say that this is not the case, and it never was the case, that there was that danger. Another point to keep in mind, allowing for the veto of this legislation to move forward will not be in the best interest for any of us at this time. With the assistance from the planning department as well as our county council attorney and staff, we will be reconsidering this legislation and amending it in a manner that will be more in line with what this community wants and needs. It is a responsible and reasonable attempt to resolve this matter in a much more efficient, meaningful, and collaborative manner. And that's what we will be presenting to the public today. Keep in mind, above all else, and my impression, and you can quote me, is that government does not work unless it works together in unison with the public. That's my statement for the day. Any other comments? Okay.
Mr. Cannon? Yes. I have a comment. at the last meeting, we put on the calendar for a year from now, that the council will review any legislation about the kennels. No matter what we pass today, whatever form it is, I'd like to see that remain on the calendar for a year from now and hear back from these folks in the audience to see if it's working for them or if it's not working for them. That's okay with you? Does council agree on that? So, okay.
I do have one more thing.
Duly noted, Joe. Thank you. Yes, Gene.
Some of the people I spoke to on the phone, I did tell them before I knew we could fix this ourselves that I was not going to override the veto. If that's what had to be done, I was not going to override the veto to save this from happening. But once I found out that we can and we had the option of fixing this ourselves, that's why I chose to go this route.
Thank you, Councilman Baker. Mr. Benson, any comments?
I mean, if there is a vote to reconsider, that voids the prior passage and it reopens the bill as though it had never been passed. And that would also allow motions to be made to amend the bill.
Okay.
I'm just confused because I thought it was signed into law on the last council meeting. And then it was vetoed and then it comes back to us. I'm just trying to figure out how we really can amend this.
There are motions to reconsider are permitted. If you strictly review Robert's rules, they can only be made on the day of the legislation originally passed.
Right.
However, most legislative bodies in the United States don't follow Robert's Rules of Order strictly, and they allow motions to reconsider at the next legislative date. Today is the next legislative date, and I would just point out that other counties in Maryland operate in that manner. Montgomery County, Prince George's County, both allow motions to reconsider to be made at the next legislative date. So this motion to reconsider is consistent with the standard practice of most legislative bodies. It has to be made in a timely manner. I would point out that under the limited rules the county has, normally legislation is not permitted. Once a legislation is passed or defeated, there can be no reconsideration on that same day. If you did that, the motion to reconsider would not be viable. So in order for a motion to reconsider to be allowed under any circumstances, it would by definition have to be made at the next legislative date, which is today.
Thank you, Mr. Benson.
And I would also add that if you read the county code with regard to veto, the specific language is that at the next legislative date, the county council may reconsider the bill. That's the direct quote out of the charter.
Right.
But we still need to vote to override the veto, correct?
We did.
Voted to override the veto.
We will be doing that next,
Okay.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
We voted originally to bring it back to the table, which is what we've done and had the discussion.
Oh.
So next, we'll be asking for a vote, and it's going to be phrased as a vote on legislative bill 2025-01 as originally adopted, okay? That, in a sense, will override the veto, okay? So I would entertain a motion to vote on legislative bill 2025-01 as originally adopted. It'll be by a roll call vote. If you want to vote on legislative bill 2025-01 as originally adopted, that means that you will be overriding the veto. All those in favor will say aye. Opposed will say nay. We'll start with Councilman Holloway.
Aye.
Councilman Hastings.
No.
Councilman Nguyen is a no. Councilwoman Shields.
Aye.
Councilman Baker.
Aye.
Councilman Vice President Merritt.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Legislative bill 2025-01 has been adopted as originally adopted, has been voted on. The veto has been overridden by a vote of 6-1. Correct? Okay, we'll take this one step at a time. Now we need a motion to actually reconsider the legislative bill as originally adopted. Am I correct again?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So moved.
Okay, all right, second.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? We need a vote to reconsider the bill. All those in favor of reconsidering the bill, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Appears we have a majority of 7-0 to reconsider the bill. We're going to have a discussion on the bill itself and the amendments that I believe that the council would like to implement, as well as those that have been recommended with the guidance of our legal counsel. I believe in front of us, Mr. Benson and Mrs. Hurley have prepared motions so that we can go through the process very carefully, step by step. Would anybody like to begin the proposed motions for Legislative Bill 2025-01? We'll take one at a time. If you're going to do it.
I don't have the motions.
Here you go.
It starts with 2.
You want to hold mine? I'll share mine with Josh.
There you go. We'll start one at a time.
I make a motion to amend Section 225-99 titled Kennels, letter A.2, to read as follows: Not to have the runs or a structure which houses the dogs located within 500 feet of an existing residential dwelling on another parcel, and to delete, in quotes, as measured from the property line of the kennel property, end quote.
The motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm just going to ask, should we ask the planning director to come to the table to verify to make sure this is okay the first time, or is that okay? I mean, is it?
Yeah.
A lot of this has been done with the advice, but is Tracy here today?
Yeah, she's right there.
Oh, there you are, Tracy. Sorry. Would you mind? If you have any objections in what we're presenting, if you see any problems or any corrections that need to be made, you'll help us with that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right. If we get out of line, you'll let us know, right?
Okay.
Okay. So motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the, yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you guys originally said 200 foot, right? Wasn't that what was originally presented?
That was the original code.
That's the existing code.
That was the existing code.
And you guys recommended 500 feet?
Recommended 500, and then the change be not as measured from the property line of the kennel, but measured from the kennel
Just
operation.
want to make sure.
Thanks for the clarification.
Mr. President,
Yes.
thank you. Good morning. Andrew Illuminati, Department of Law. Just for clarification, Mr. Merritt, Councilmember Merritt's motion was to delete as measured from the property line of the kennel property. I believe it would also be proper to delete the 1,000 feet. That didn't appear, that's from, both that and the as measured were introduced at the last council meeting as amendments. So if you're going to delete one, you should also delete the other. They should be included. If you only delete one and not the other, it creates a problem of whether it's 1,000 feet or 500 feet
Okay.
going forward.
Appreciate that clarification, Mr.
That's
Benson.
why we got you at the table.
Understood? Okay, great. You acknowledge that in your amendment?
Yes.
Okay, it's been accepted, has been accepted to whoever made the second. Okay, so we're all in concert here. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Mr. President?
Yes.
I just want to clarify too, I know it's confusing to the public, but it's very different. This is within the zoning, so this is separate from the commercial 2 district where, I don't know if that's where the Kennel Club and other places are at, but this is separate from that. This is within the ag district, to the A1 and the town transition or the village conservation districts. So to be
Correct.
clear on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor of the amendment as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Amendment passes unanimously. Vice President Merritt, you want to continue?
Sure. Thank you. To amend Section 225-99 titled Kennels, letter C, to add a new sentence at the beginning of the paragraph as follows: A property which received a special exception to operate a kennel prior to January 1st, 2025, may continue as a non-conforming special exception as provided by Section 225-152.
The motion, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Illuminati?
I would recommend that second sentence be amended to strike a property and replace it with all other properties. That way, it clearly designates that those with a non-conforming special exception are then not triggered as part of that second sentence.
Planning Director agrees.
That's correct.
Okay, Mr. Merritt, would you repeat your revised amendment and get a revised assessment, a second on that?
To amend Section 225-99, titled Kennels, letter C, to add a new sentence at the beginning of the paragraph as follows: all other properties which received a special exception to operate a kennel prior to January 1, 2025 may continue as a non-conforming special exception as provided by Sections 225-152.
We need a different amendment than
Mr. Chair, I'd recommend that the amendment be to 225-99, Section C, a property which received a special exception to operate a kennel prior to January 1, 2025 may continue as a non-conforming special exception as provided by Section 225-152 as the first sentence, and that the second sentence strike a property and begin with all other properties, followed by with 10 or more dogs prior to the effective date of legislative bill 2025-01 shall continue as a non-conforming use as provided by Section 225-150. However, the ability to continue the non-conforming use shall terminate 3 years from the effective date of legislative bill 2025-01 or non-compliance with Section 225-150 subsection F, whichever comes first. That is how Section C would read in full. Is that?
Mr. Benson?
I would just suggest that Mr. Merritt adopt the language presented by Mr. Illuminati.
Agree.
I agree.
Okay, all right.
I wanted to see you spell it out.
I was going to say, can you say that back?
Can I make
Mr.
one?
Illuminati, can we shorten this up by simply saying all existing kennel owners will be grandfathered in? Is that a safe statement?
I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that.
That's what he said, thank you.
Okay.
That's what we need to do. We'll accept that, Mr. Benson. You'll accept that, Vice President Merritt?
Yes.
Okay, and the second?
Second.
Second's okay with that.
Just for clarification, and the planning and Mr. Illuminati can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is after the bill was adopted on February 4th, the planning department identified 8 existing kennels that are permitted by special exception. And the purpose of this provision is to acknowledge that those 8 kennels that already have special exceptions will be allowed to continue, and that the sunset provision will not apply to them.
That's correct.
Thank you. And I think what we should do, once we get through all this, make sure that once it's finalized and codified, that copies of all of this go out to all the kennel owners so that they understand very clearly what happened today. Okay? So we have the second amendment on the table as read by Vice President Merritt and Attorney Illuminati. And we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. The second amendment passes. Mr. Merritt, would you like to make another amendment in concert with legal counsel?
You picking on me? All right, third one, to amend Section 225 titled Kennels to add the letter D to read as follows: the Board of Appeals may modify the separation requirements in subsection A2 as part of the special exception application.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Illuminati, Ms. Taylor?
Just to clarify for the public, what that means is in the A1, in the town transition, and in the village conservation, an individual to operate a kennel needs a special exception. At the special exception hearing, the applicant can ask the Board of Appeals to reduce that 500-foot requirement as part of the other amendment. So for example, there may be 490 feet of clearance, and the other structure is owned by a family member, and that family member comes to the board hearing and says, I don't have a problem with that. I want my family member to be able to operate a kennel, and the board then can have that discretion to say, not be located within 480 feet of a existing residence. And that would be allow for additional kennels to receive that modification downward.
Thank you, Mr. Illuminati. Any other discussion from council?
Just, Mr. Illuminati, for the public's clarification, the only reason an existing kennel would need to go through the special exception process would be if they expanded their current operation. Is that correct?
Or if they, when they received their original approval and special exception, there's conditions of approval. If they were going to deviate from those conditions of approval, including expansion or other items that didn't conform to the original conditions, they would go back to the Board of Appeals for a change in special exception use.
Thank you.
Yes, Joe.
This one amendment's probably one of the most important amendments that we're making. This basically gives a lot of flexibility to anybody that wants to open a kennel or anything else in the county that they have to have a special exception for. I'm not sure if other items would have this in there, but it sure gives the flexibility. I'm sitting here thinking about a property right now that we looked at in the poultry legislation as far as setbacks that was right along the edge of a wood line that was owned by the state, that the state would never develop into homes or whatever. And for that setback to be in effect for that one property didn't make sense. So this is a very important amendment here. I think probably one of the most important amendments of the whole bill that we're doing. So.
Thank you, Councilman Holloway. Any other comments? All those in favor of the amendment as read, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Amendment passes. We have one more to go. Is that right?
Yes, sir. All right, to amend Legislative Bill 225-01 to renumber the current Section 2 to Section 4 and add a new Section 2 and 3 of Legislative Bill 2025-01 to read as follows. Section 2, it is the intention of Wicomico County Council that each provision of this legislative bill shall be deemed independent of all other provisions herein. Section 3, it is further the intention of the Wicomico County Council that if any section, paragraph, subsection, clause, or provision of this legislative bill shall be adjudged invalid, unconstitutional, or otherwise unenforceable under the applicable Maryland or federal law, such adjudication shall apply only to the section, paragraph, subsection, clause, or provision so adjudged, and all other provisions of this legislative bill shall remain and shall be deemed valid and enforceable.
It's a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion? Mr. Illuminati?
Issued.
Ms. Taylor?
No issue.
All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Amendment passes. Any other discussion from council members in reference to this?
I just want to thank our planning and zoning director for being here today. Maybe if this had happened at the last meeting, we'd had a little more clarity on what was going on. So thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Just one more point that I think needs clarifying, and I'll echo Councilman Holloway's. Mr. Illuminati, Ms. Taylor, thank you for helping us through this process. It was very complicated, a lot of options on the table, and thank you for your guidance. I've received a bunch of questions about the number of dogs, 10 dogs, and I hear a lot, how can a kennel make any money off 10 dogs? Well, they can't. The 10 dogs isn't the number of dogs you're allowed to have. The 10 dogs is the line where you have to apply for a kennel license or not. If you have 9 dogs, you're good. If you have 10, you have to apply for a kennel license. You can have 100 dogs, as long as you have a kennel license.
Correct. And the Board of Appeals, in granting that special exception, could cap the number of dogs based on the size of the parcel, based on the renderings that are presented. So if the original renderings are for 35 dogs, and then they later want to increase to 50, they need to come back for another special exception hearing. So those are all the protections provided within the special exception hearing before the Board of Appeals.
Just, again, Ms. Taylor, thank you. How long have you worked for us? 2 months?
3.
3 months? It's been nonstop, hasn't it?
It's been interesting.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for
Initiation by
your
fire.
work. We appreciate your work, absolutely.
Thank you.
Let's not ignore the fact that Ms. Taylor worked for the state of Maryland for many years prior to this time, and in an excellent capacity. You were one of the very first individuals I met on the state level who I was absolutely dumbfounded, was so cooperative and so anxious to help. And you've been that way ever since I've known you.
Thank
and
you.
again today as well.
Thank you.
Yes, Josh?
I have one more hiccup.
No, you don't.
Yeah, unfortunately I do. We need to make sure that the Kennel Club is indeed exempt. It looks like they're currently, if I'm reading this right, in LB1, the light business industrial zone, in which case we do lay out that this is for the boarding, breeding, training, selling, exhibition, or raising. So at any point in time, the Kennel Club, the White County Kennel Club, could theoretically be in breach of that. So I don't know if that's worth spelling out in here. I know we did mention it within, we did put an exclusion in earlier. So I don't expect our planning director, who's awesome, to have all this and ready to be able to look up any particular one address. But looking at this, it looks like that. I just want to make sure that the Kennel Club is specifically spelled out. And yeah, so I don't know if it's worth spelling that out in code, and I'm looking to Mr. Illuminati or others.
Are you speaking to the kennel, I'm sorry, are you speaking to the Kennel Club at Winter Place?
Yeah, Salisbury Kennel Club, yeah.
The dogs, and excuse my ignorance asking this question, but I don't think the dogs are kept there. They're brought there temporarily to train and then removed, correct?
Yeah, well, I'm no longer even a dog owner myself, so I can't say this, but I do have a lot of the Kennel Club folks that actually did reach out to basically say, hey, they could be there at any point in time, and the fact that we put in here exhibition as part of that, and the training, putting that into the text of this, I guess would be the only thing that would question in my mind whether or not that would technically be afoul of it, because it looks like they're in the, it shows in here according to our zoning map that that's in the light industrial.
Okay, we'll have
So-
to take a look at that.
And by the way, obviously, none of this is, I'm just stating the obvious. The county is not coming after any particular group of people. At any point in time, we can issue a new bill and retouch up any of these things. But I just want to make sure that we're being comprehensive and thoughtful about this while we got it ahead of us here. And I know that that was brought up to me by a couple of the Kennel Club folks. So maybe I'll pause there. I don't know if you all have any thoughts.
We'll take a further look at that.
Okay.
Questions or comments?
Wouldn't the amendment to, for special exception to operate a kennel prior to January 1st, 2025, take care of that? Or would that not?
I don't know if they received a special exception to operate, because I think they're a permitted use in that zone. So they wouldn't fall under the special exception provision.
All right.
Questions or comments? I'll make sure I get this right. It should be a very simple process here, Mr. Benson, make sure I don't misstep. So I will state, all those in favor of legislative bill 2025-01 as amended will vote aye. Opposed, you will vote nay. Am I correct? It's that simple. So all those in favor of legislative bill 2025-01 as amended will say aye, starting with Councilman Holloway.
Aye.
Councilman Hastings.
Aye.
Councilman Wynn.
Nay.
Councilwoman Shields.
Aye.
Councilman Baker.
Aye.
Vice President Merritt.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Legislative Bill 2025-01 as amended passes with a vote of 6-1. Thank you very much. It's a super majority on all votes there. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Illuminati. Thank you, Ms. Taylor. We appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hurley. Thank you, Mr. Benson. Yes, Joe.
Mr. Cannon, I know we have a lot of folks from the kennel industry in here today, and we have quite a few things on the agenda, and our public comment section is, pretty far down the agenda. Would you consider doing 2 public comment sections? I know a lot of these folks work if they wanted to speak now, and
Really, Joe, I'd love to, but I really hate to get away.
It wouldn't hold
I
them up.
hate to get away from proper process because that can come back in the future as a precedent that could really damage the council's
that's fine, just a
regular
suggestion.
routine. I do appreciate it.
Just a suggestion.
I get
Okay.
it. Anything to that effect needs to be brought to the council's attention prior to
That's
moving
fine.
into the
Okay.
agenda. Thank you very much. Ms. Hurley.
Next on the agenda is a public hearing on resolution number 26-2025. This is approving the natural gas distribution services to install mains, conduits, conductors, pipes, and other facilities in, through, along, or under county right-of-ways or other real property in order to provide natural gas services to residents and business owners throughout the county's boundaries. This is a request to enter into a natural gas franchise renewal agreement with Chesapeake Utilities Corporation for a period of 25 years, commencing February of 2025. This will allow them to provide natural gas services to residents and business owners in the county. A public hearing notice was published on the county's website as well as in the local newspaper. And we have before you Director of Administration, Bunky Luppman, if you have any questions. And again, this is a public hearing.
This time we get before for public hearing on resolution number 26-2025 in reference to the natural gas line distribution. If you have any comments you'd like to make in reference to this specific resolution, come to the podium, state your name, your county of residence, and your concerns. That concludes the public hearing on resolution number 26-2025. Entertain a motion from council to approve resolution 26-2025.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Yes.
I have a couple questions.
Sure. I also want to say that I have Chris Smith here from the Department of Law, as well as Tiffany, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name, but I believe it's Garreau, who's here from Chesapeake Utilities, who can probably aid me in answering questions.
Yes, so I guess first, who wrote the text that's in there, the franchise agreement? Is that from the county or is that from the utility?
So there was a franchise agreement, I believe, in 1971, and so Tiffany reached out, and could come up, and Chris, Tiffany reached out and said, hey, it's time that we renew this, and then we sent it to legal, and so Chris is the one that sort of spearheaded it, and I know that he also worked with Council Administrator Laura early on some of this too.
If you could each state your name and your title, please.
Christopher Smith, Law Department.
Tiffany Giroux, Natural Gas Representative, Business Development for Chesapeake Utilities.
Thank you.
Chris.
Could you read the question one more time?
Oh, just, I guess the initial question is who basically wrote the franchise agreement that we see? It's about 10 pages of text or so. Is that written by the county?
The initial agreement was a renewal language from Chesapeake. However, there were some interworkings that the county put in. We worked with Chesapeake and had a few things put in there as well.
And then so this is, I guess this is a term of 25 years?
Correct.
25, yes.
And to be clear, so a franchise agreement, and if I'm reading this right, so this is a monopoly agreement, or is this not? Are you allowing any other any other business to come through, if any other?
I believe it is written as an exclusive franchise agreement.
That's my understanding as well. Yes, exclusive.
Okay. And then a couple other questions. It mentions in 4.1 on here, the regulation by the county says at times specified in the section, the franchisee shall pay the franchise fee, the county amount of $5,000 to offset the cost incurred by the county related administration of the franchise in the county provision of the service of the franchise in the county. So I guess it's supposed to say within that section when and how we get the $5,000. I guess when and how do we get the $5,000?
So stated in 4.2, once the PSC approves the franchise, we paid no later than 5 calendar days by Chesapeake Utilities.
So we get paid $5,000 for 25 years.
Correct.
And I guess the only other questions here, this is the, so we've only in the last, well, it seems kind of low, I guess. I guess in my mind, I'm just thinking through, it'd be one thing if it was Comcast Cable or other, we have franchise agreements with them. If we are to impose monopolies on the public, I guess usually there's a significant amount of, if we're going to eliminate competition, then the reason we do so then is to have significant benefits. So in things like right now, people are watching on PAC 14, that is a benefit of the franchise agreement. Other than the right to ability to have you all do business and for our citizens to receive that business, what other than the $5,000 is the county getting? I know that looks like there's a state fee of 2% plus 0.00402 THEM. I don't even know what that thermium, I don't even know what that refers to. But I guess in my understanding, usually counties get if you're going to go through this process, I just want to make sure that we are being as thoughtful as if we allow a monopoly in. I want to make sure that we're getting paid and that it is as comprehensive agreement for what is not a 5-year agreement, but for a 25-year agreement. That makes sense. And by the way, is that $5,000 per year or $5,000 for 25 years?
That is a total $5,000 for the 25-year period.
Okay, I'll pause there.
I have kind of a question to piggyback off of that. So if the public is not getting the services that they need from Chesapeake, what is the back out clause for, like, how can we back out of the franchise if we have to back out and go with someone else? It's 25 years is a long time, and the people in front of me right now have great intentions, but 5 years from now they might not. And I'm just curious if there's some way to back out of it unless we're locked in for 25 years.
And I'll speak on behalf of Chesapeake Utilities, there is opportunity to negotiate the term. We stated 25 years because it is a renewal, and the prior franchise agreement was for 25 years as well. Actually, going back all the way to before we acquired Citizens Gas, it was in the early 1900s that this all originally started. So this has been a long-term franchise agreement under the acquisition of Citizens Gas in the early 1990s. I think 1996 is when we acquired that company. And so it's just been a continuation of the typical terms within the original franchise agreements.
That was my understanding as well.
What?
I second what she had just said. That was my understanding as well of the historical franchise agreements.
Maybe for administration, Mr. Luffman, how was it determined that $5,000 would be the figure that was sufficient? Why not 100,000? Why not 2,000? Just curious.
Well, this was we were just renewing this. Now, certainly, if the council's will is for us to go back and sort of negotiate that to see if we could get, more amount, I'm open to that. The issue, though, is, like she said, they're already here. They're already doing business. Our county, thankfully, already has natural gas,
right.
which is a huge cost savings for us, as Somerset County knows, because they didn't have access to this until recently. So this is a net benefit already.
Mike, I just question, how come a lot of houses don't have, there are some in the city, but how come a lot of houses don't have natural gas? Is the state holding it up, are we holding it up, or is Chesapeake not doing enough? I'm just curious.
It ultimately comes down to an economic model. So with any project that we look at, whether it's to an individual home, to a community, we have to run an economic model to show that the cost of doing the project are covered by the potential revenues. And those models have to be submitted to the Public Service Commission. So if there happens to be a project where the cost of the project are not covered by the revenues, then that customer can either choose to pay that difference or forgo getting natural gas. So it's really a matter of how far we can extend based on the economics of each project. That's the limit of how far we could go.
So this has to be done by the end of February? Monkey, didn't you say?
I don't know that we would be penalized if it wasn't done by the end of February. That would be a Chesapeake utility thing. But yeah, I mean, we first submitted this to council in November. So, and then I know council administrator has had, some questions which were answered, which was good, that advanced us here. But I mean, I don't think there's a penalty if you do not adopt it tonight.
So the council got it in November because we just got it in the brief book this past week.
I sent over the memo November 17th, I believe it was, to your office.
So I can speak to that.
November 27th. It's on the memo.
There were a few concerns on how the agreement was originally presented back in November. If my memory serves me correct, it was originally with the county executive as opposed to Wicomico County. So we did look at that. I also question why it was a renewal when it appeared to be just a new agreement, a new 25-year agreement. So I talked to Mr. Smith about that as well. It does take 3 weeks worth of advertising, so that was part of the delay as well. And then I believe he had to coordinate with Chesapeake Utilities as far as, scheduling the public hearing date, because that took a little bit of time. Outside of that, but we have been working on it since.
Well, I don't have any problem with the agreement, but this is just a perfect example where we get jammed up sometimes, getting something, a week or two before it's due, whether we'd be penalized for not doing this one or not. But as we just saw earlier in the day, the council come under great criticism for something we did that wasn't due to the longevity of looking at it. But, we've got to quit rushing into things, and we need more time. So I'll address that to the council administrator and the executive's office. So.
Answer the comment.
Yeah, I'd like to see if we can't make a motion to table this. I want to make sure I review this and maybe get a hold of Chris and what was your?
Tiffany.
Tiffany, again, to make sure that we can get the best deal possible for the county, because there's a lot of people in the community that don't have natural gas, and the way the price of electric is right now, I think we need to be trying to see how many people we can get on natural gas, and I would like to make a motion to table this.
Motion to table, is there a second?
Back to second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor of tabling resolution number 2025, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Resolution number 26, 2025 has been tabled. Mrs. Hurley, until the next meeting, correct?
Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
I do have one clarification. So, and this is to the council administrator, and this just, I don't know. Does this have to be advertised again for another 3 weeks, or?
I think if we're going to have the work session, unless Mr. Smith, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we can still move forward with the work session.
Okay.
There will
All right,
be,
thank you.
but then there will be an advertisement for when the resolution comes back to the table again, or has this public hearing sufficed? Probably not.
Well, there was no one that came out, so I don't think it hurts to re-advertise it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mrs. Hurley?
The next item for business is resolution number 27-2025. This is amending the fiscal year 25 operating budget to make a required payment as part of a settlement of a lawsuit by the Wicomico County branch of the NAACP et al. Against Wicomico County, Maryland et al. And before you is Mrs. Pam Olin, Director of Finance.
Entertain a motion from council for resolution 27, 2025.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion, Ms. Olin. Good morning.
Good morning. At the last council meeting, council approved the concept of the settlement for the NAACP lawsuit. As such, in that lawsuit, there was a $125,000 payment. There is insufficient funds in anybody's specific budget to cover this cost, and so we are requesting that a litigation settlement account be created, and the litigation settlement account include the $125,000, and it would come from fund balance. And sorry, Pam Olin, Finance Director.
Joe.
Good morning, Pam. How are you?
Good morning.
Is there any idea, I know we've got $125,000 that has to be paid to the attorneys for the NAACP and the ACLU. Is there any idea what the cost is going to be to the county for our attorneys, Mr. Kobinski, and how much of this is covered by our insurance?
So at the very beginning of this process, Legit agreed to pay $50,000 towards the overall process. As such, Mr. Karpinski's bills have been included have been coming to Wicomico County since he started this process. I have been submitting them to legal to review since I have not been involved, just to make sure that the amount of time looks legitimate. And then I submit those bills to Legit, and Legit has been paying those. At this moment, there is still funds remaining in that $50,000. Probably, I should have looked, but I did not. I've been keeping a tally on my desk, and I don't have that with me. I want to say it's about $10,000 remaining. It should be enough to pay the remainder of his bill for any of the final parts of the settlement. So I don't anticipate any costs for Mr. Karpinski to be coming out of our costs. If there's, excuse me, sorry. If there's any remaining amount between what we finally pay to him and what we ultimately then pay out, we will get that difference from Legit, and that will come back to the county. So I'm requesting the whole $125,000 because I don't have his final bills. And so until I have those final bills, I can't estimate close enough to make it appropriate.
So you're saying possibly Mr. Karpinski's bill is going to probably be around $50,000?
I expect a majority of the
Hopefully
remaining.
not anymore.
Correct. I expect the majority of the amount to be gone, so I'm expecting less than $10,000, maybe even less than $5,000 available to pay this settlement.
So we're looking now at $185,000 is what this has probably cost us.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, our insurance, again, has covered
Right,
50.
50 of it, yes. Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor of Resolution 25, 2025, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution passes.
Thank
Next
you.
resolution number 28-2025. This is to make an appropriation of funds to the Sheriff's Office from unanticipated revenue in the amount of $132,592.44 from the confiscated funds account. And before you is Major Todd Richardson with the Wicomico County Sheriff's Office, and again, our Director of Finance, Pam Olin.
Major, good to see you.
Good afternoon. Major Todd Richardson, Wicomico County Sheriff's Office.
Pam Olin, Finance Director.
Did you all find some more money, did you?
We did.
Time to work.
Most of the time when I come in front of this council needing money, I also come with the money that I need. I try not to ask for money that came from taxpayer money, especially in the middle of the year. And as you'll notice, all these accounts that this money is going to is to cover normal operating expenses that were just over, either because of inflation or unanticipated purchase.
And as noted, the funds cannot supplement the council's budget to the Sheriff's Department. This is all over and above, as rightfully so.
Correct.
Any questions?
Is there any, I see you have your list, unknown unique equipment, replacement, vehicle maintenance, training skills. Is there anything that it won't cover that you can think of? I know it's...
You mean, am I going to be in the red even without this? Is that what you're...
No. Is there anything on a list that says you cannot buy such and such with this money?
No.
So you can pretty much use it for whatever
Yes.
you want?
It's not restricted like federal forfeitures. This was a local county forfeiture of a marijuana dealer who had lots of cash.
He didn't want his money back? He didn't say he wanted it back?
He was willing to give it up really quickly compared to his jail time, I think.
Yeah. Any other questions? Jeff?
Major, thank you. Just to clarify, when the public sees, oh my goodness, the sheriff's office got $132,000 of free money, that's not actually correct, right? There's expenses involved, wiretap fees, and all the other things that
Depending on the
partially offsets.
Depending on the investigation, that could have been overtime money alone.
Right. So it's not free money. It's
No, we work for it very hard.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All those in favor of Resolution 28, 2020?
Mr. President?
Yes.
We need a first and second on that one.
Make a motion.
I'll make,
Entertain a motion to approve Resolution 28, 2025.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Hurley. Missed that one.
For clarification, who made the first?
Second was Shane.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hurley. Wow. All those in favor of Resolution 2025, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes.
We all need someone to keep us straight.
Thank God.
Thank you, Major.
Thank you, Major.
Next is Resolution Number 29-2025. This is amending the fiscal year 25 position control document, Exhibit E, to reflect an increase in salary for position number 100133, Building Inspector, and position number 100510, Zoning Technician, for the Department of Planning, Zoning, and Community Development.
Need a motion from council to approve Resolution 29, 2025. Moved. Second.
Second.
Discussion.
If I may, Pam Olin, Finance Director.
Tracy Taylor, Planning Director.
I apologize in reviewing this. The memo behind and the position control document are appropriate. There's 4 spots on this resolution that have typos, and I apologize. I missed it in the review. And so I am requesting that council do an amendment, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to amend the nuisance code enforcement officer so that that person who is doing the supervising has a space between the position we want to hire beneath them. And so that's what the memo reflects, and that's what the position control document reflects. There's a typo in the resolution. And so what I'm requesting is that the amendment be that the position number 10051 be 100128, and that the name be nuisance code enforcement officer. And then in the third whereas, 10051 become 100128. And in the now therefore be resolved, 100510 become 100128. I do apologize. In reviewing it, I missed it.
My oversight as well. Thank you.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Baker, Councilman Baker makes the motion as such. Is that adequate? That's sufficient, Mr. Benson? Okay. As stated, there a second?
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion?
I apologize.
It's okay, we appreciate
Me
it.
too. I should have caught it.
Okay, the motion and the second, discussion. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, amendment passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the resolution? All those in favor of Resolution 29, 2025 as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution 29, 2025 as amended passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Solon.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Hurley. Ms. Chattel. There she is. Still morning.
Good morning, Council President Cannon, and good morning, Council. My name is Anjali Chattel. I'm the Internal Auditor, and I'm here to present Resolution Number 30-2025, concurring with the declaration from the Internal Auditor on organizational independence.
Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 30-25.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay. So the Institute of Internal Auditors publishes the Internal Professional Practices Framework. Standard 7.1, entitled Organizational Independence, states the Chief Audit Executive must confirm to the board the organizational independence of the internal audit activity at least annually. In Wicomico County, the equivalent of the board is the director. The board of directors is the county executive and the county council. So under Standard 7.1, I'm pleased to provide the following declaration, that as the Chief Audit Executive of the Office of the Internal Auditor of Wicomico County, Maryland, I declare that to the best of my knowledge and belief, all potential, perceived, or actual conflicts have been mitigated by actions or safeguards. And I'm also supposed to explain what those safeguards were or mitigating actions. So one of them is that I requested to withdraw from the budget audit portion of the fiscal year 2024 audit plan to avoid the actual potential or perceived conflict of interest due to the level of involvement of the internal auditor during that budget review process that happened last year, which was done after the audit plan had been developed. So that's where it was realized that there was a potential, at least a potential perceived conflict. Another thing is in my audits, where there's something that's like a county-wide thing, for instance, the purchase card, that report hadn't come out yet, but like the cell phone audit, where I had a cell phone, so I didn't audit my own expenses, so that's another safeguard. And then if there's anything that I would have reviewed, for instance, or somebody else would have reviewed mine, so the council administrator, if she reviews my expense or something like that, then I'm not going to audit that county position in my review. And then, as you may be aware, that we've worked on developing a new process for reviewing the internal auditor expenses. Now the council president approves the expenses, or it's more clearly that that's what's happening, so that going forward, I can expand my auditing a little bit more, but still not auditing my own expenses.
All right.
In time, yep.
Any questions? Seeing none. All those in favor of Resolution 30-2025, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion's carried. Resolution passes unanimously.
Thank you. And then I had one other question. Just in the future, since I'm developing an audit report now every year, is it okay if going forward I do this statement as part of that annual review, so it's not like a twice a year thing in one?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day. This time we open the floor for public comments. If you have any comments you'd like to make, come to the podium, please. State your name, your county residence, and your concerns.
Thank you. My name's Joe White, resident of the east side of Wicomico County. I want to talk a little bit about the actions the actions the council had today. The opportunity for folks to participate and speak out against their government is fundamental, and it's actually essential for the best part of American citizenship. There are many folks here today, some of them have left because of the resolutions earlier, who came to speak out against the county council. And as you all said as much, you made a mistake, and you made a decision at the last minute to amend a bill without proper notice, and they were here to hold you accountable. And that is actually a good thing. It sounds like you all heard them. I want to encourage even folks who maybe don't come here quite as often to continue to participate. I actually think I'm a very fiscally conservative person. I've lived in Wicomico County almost my entire life, only long enough to realize that this is where I wanted to be the rest of my life. But I do believe in the next 120 days, we are going to face, as a group, not council versus executive, not government versus citizens, as a group, some really tough decisions, most notably about the budget. We have missed a charter deadline that may even be state law, and that we should have our fiscal year 2024 financial audit complete, and it is not. This is the opposite of transparent government, and the 7 of you standing here and our executive, who I don't see here now, owe it to us as citizens and as taxpayers to be the most transparent you can be, and I don't think we're there. We have other smaller events, such as Safari at the Quarry, that we still don't have the financial audit back. This does not embed confidence in your government, and we have just seen through the last 6 months, a third of us have received assessments on our property value that have increased 20 to 30%. We have a revenue cap in this county that was voted on democratically by our citizens. It is essential to making life affordable in this county. If we make decisions in just 60 to 120 days that impact that ability and folks to live in this county, we're no different as a group than the same folks who are speaking out against power companies right now. The surprise should not be in the bill. The surprise should be in the fact you need to be very, very involved. And now is the time. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Billy Rester, Wicomico County, for the 2025-01.
You could, I'm sorry, I did not get the name. Thank you.
Billy Rester, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I seen you guys, I mean, you all admitted, and I'm grateful that, with the 1,000 feet from the kennel. But you immediately turned right around and said 500, and I didn't see one person doing any figuring to see how much land you would actually have to have. Is anybody here familiar, even with the 500 foot setback, the minimum amount of acreage that you have to own for that? Does anybody know what it is?
We don't usually do it back and forth, but we did have maps that were provided us by the
It was
planning.
36 acres,
By
in
the
case
planning
anybody
director.
didn't know that.
By the planning
It's a
director.
minimum, and that's in a perfect scenario. Your kennel would have to be dead center in the center of your property, and you'd have to have 36 acres minimum. I don't know how many kennel owners have that. I think it's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. I don't even know why you guys are coming after. What was the reason that you're going after the kennel owners? What was it?
We don't normally, we don't do a
I
Q&A.
understand that,
appreciate
but I want you all to think about it. It's
I appre-
ridiculous.
Yeah, we
The
appreciate it.
revenue, I mean, half of these people are gonna shut their business down. Most kennel owners is a cash business. So if they're licensed, they're doing it right. You're gonna force them to close their business down and do it under the table, and it's gonna hurt this county. It's ridiculous.
Thank you, Ms. Rastner. Mr. Goldberg, we have someone here. Mr. Phoebus, go ahead.
John J.
Mr. President, members of the council, I'm John Phoebus. I live in Somerset County, but I'm a lawyer who has an office here in Salisbury. I speak here today on behalf of Marissa Petrak and the dog company. I recognize I'm coming from Somerset County, speaking on behalf of a town of Fruitland business who's actually not subject to the Wicomico County zoning code. So we're here in solidarity with the other dog kennel owners here in Wicomico County. We recognize and appreciate the council reconsidering and trying to correct the legislation that is before it today. This is our chance for public comment, so you're still going to hear it. So, and not in a criticism way, but just to let you see, the dog company employs 6 people. Probably in the course of a year, 245 some dogs are trained through obedience school, served through doggy daycare, through some kenneling. Those 245 dogs represent hundreds of families here in Wicomico County. Marissa, just in 2022, invested $215,000 in capital to put up a new building. When she originally acquired the property, she tore down the existing building in 2018 for the cost of $185,000. So the sort of capital investments that dog kennel owners make is in reliance upon their ability to do a business that legislation like this could affect. The previous speaker spoke about the effect of the acreage. If imagining a dog kennel is just a single point, 200 feet from a point, and you obviously can't operate a kennel on a point, comes out to 160,000 square feet. That's about 4 acres. Again, if a kennel were existing point, you would have to have 24 acres to be 500 feet away from all the property lines. 1,000 feet would be 92 acres. And again, that imagines an imaginary kennel that only has a single point. We're speaking out in solidarity because we're against downzoning. We think that bad facts can sometimes make for bad laws, and this legislation seemed to be a solution for a problem that already has solutions. We don't think it's a problem, but there's private nuisance actions that a person who doesn't like what their neighbor is doing can go to court, and they bear the cost of proving to a judge that the behavior of their property, their neighbor, affects them. There's also existing noise ordinances that already exist in place. So we think that individual properties deserve individual solutions, and the special exception process allows for that individual solution. So we would encourage it to just stay the way it was. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Phoebus.
Mike Goldberg, Wicomico, and this meeting's going to the dogs. Sorry.
That's almost out of order.
The recent kennel bill seems to have created quite a firestorm. There's a few things that should be pointed out. The kennel bill was drafted originally by the executive branch of the county government, specifically the law department and the planning department. The intention was to stop excessive noise being experienced by landowners near one particular kennel in Sharptown. But the bill originally drafted by the executive branch had a major flaw. It did not increase the 200-foot setback required under the existing code. 200 feet's a very short distance, having little impact on the sound volume received at surrounding properties. So the county council amended the original bill to increase the property line setback to 1,000 feet to reduce the noise at neighboring properties and gave kennel operators 3 years to comply. Although it's clear that the amendment was well-intentioned, the 1,000-foot setback would have placed an undue burden on kennel operators. The council has admitted to this error, but there's plenty of culpability to go around. As the author of the bill, the executive branch failed to consider the setback requirement, which is fundamental to the noise experienced by surrounding properties. It's astonishing that they did not study the setbacks of the other kennels to ensure that they were not unreasonably impacted. This is just one among many due diligence failures typical of the executive branch. Furthermore, while the amendment was being discussed at the last council meeting, neither the law nor the planning departments objected to the 1,000-foot setback. And as usual, the county executive wasn't present in the room to contribute to the discussions, as she has frequently stated her unwillingness to work with the council, thus fomenting an adversarial relationship. The council quickly realized that the 1,000-foot setback was problematic and made it known that they intended to reconsider the bill and develop a better solution. During an interview on a shamelessly biased tabloid internet blogger's recent podcast, the executive announced that she would not...
Try to keep it within reason, please.
Yes, sir. Would not immediately veto the bill, essentially giving the council opportunity to reconsider. But she did not keep that promise, and the bill was vetoed yesterday for the sole purpose of using it as a political cudgel against the county council. Although she knew that the council had developed a workable solution, and despite her own due diligence failures, she has made every effort to incite the masses, even causing other kennel owners to needlessly spend money on lawyers. This is not leadership. It's nothing more than blatant political opportunism and a deflection from the glaring omission in the bill as originally drafted by the executive's office. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldberg.
Good morning, Mr. Cannon. And I will say happy birthday, belated birthday to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Good morning. My name is
thank you.
Earl Campbell. I'm a resident of Wicomico County, and for those who are not aware, I'm the owner of Eastern Shore Undercover, the blog that he was talking about. I'm here today to address some things that I keep hearing over and over and over again, and I keep hearing the same complaints by members of this council about social media. Over the course of the last year, I've heard members of this council complain about social media probably 2 or 3 dozen times. Out of curiosity, everybody in this room here, if you have a social media page, hold your hand up. And these guys don't have to, but I know many of these do as well. I told a particular council member maybe a year ago, social media is the best option for getting information out into your constituents. But for whatever reason, some of you haven't accepted the fact that nothing in today's society can measure the exposure that you can get through social media. What is shocking to me is that some of you sitting on that council panel actually use social media on a daily basis. And who picks and chooses when we should use social media and when we shouldn't? It's part of everyday society. And who decides what social media is good for? Is it only good when we want to post about our families and our friends doing things outside? Is it only good when we can post about a fallen officer and say we will never forget? Is it only good when we want to brag about what we're doing with cleaning up trash on the side of the roads? Or is it good when it's used to save a business or many businesses in this county because of horrific decisions that were made by this council? And who makes that mistake? And who makes mistakes and nearly puts families who have worked their tail ends off over many years and have a panel of 7 members make a decision and pick a number out of the air that nearly shut down businesses here in Wicomico County? That's what social media should be used for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
morning.
Morning.
Julie Giordano, County Executive. I just wanted to say thank you to all of the kennel owners who came out here. Again, obviously falsehoods being told from this podium. There is more of a process than what was really given by Mr. Goldberg. So not only did my group look at what was going on, their recommendation was 200 feet and also by the planning commission. It was changed at the very last second by this council. So my job as the executive is to analyze that change. And I just want to read really quick an email that I wrote to the council president. And I said, while I understand that the council may not have intended to shut down kennels, the reality is that the original legislation had that consequence. Intentions matter, but so do outcomes. And the fact remains that this bill would have severely impacted the kennel industry had it not been addressed. Regarding social media, Mr. Campbell just brought that up, it is an essential tool for communicating with the public quickly and transparently. The issue needed immediate attention, and without my efforts to inform the public, many citizens would have been unaware of the serious consequences of this legislation. The engagement and response from the public were critical in ensuring this matter was revisited. I appreciate the council's willingness to reconsider and improve the bill, but it is important to acknowledge that public awareness played a major role in prompting that revision. Moving forward, I hope we can work together to avoid unintended consequences and ensure thorough vetting before legislation is passed. That was all I was saying. That was it.
Thanks, John.
Not used to being on this side. My name is Ola Meadowcroft. I am a former kennel owner, and I am here representing the owner of Weeping Willow Kennels. I had the opportunity to work for the county for 25 years, and surprisingly, I worked in planning and zoning. I was a recording secretary. They can only do what they have in front of them that has been enacted as law. If this particular incident that's going on now is because of one approval that was made, including what was requested as a kennel in Sharptown, then they can't dissect everything that comes before them. They can only go by what is told to them and work within those parameters. If this was a knee-jerk reaction, if you want to do something about what is there now, there are other ways to do this rather than to attack the people that have been granted a special exception, followed the rules, followed the conditions of approval. I don't think that there's anything wrong with the 200-foot setback. I mean, you're saying that there's 8 kennels, then fine. Those 8 kennels have been operating since prior to 2025, and you don't have a problem with them, but we are the ones that were going to be ultimately affected by that. We talk about Julie Giordano being emotional and irresponsible. I call that as fierce and passionate. And as far as social media, had that not come about with the information, be it right, wrong, in between gray areas or whatever, I would not have known. A lot of these people would have known what was about to transpire. I think that the approval that was made is challenging. I was against it from the get-go, but again, you have to abide by what the conditions and the criteria that are presented to you. I think that there's other ways that you can go about this. The county code is written and changes can be made to ensure that this doesn't happen in the future. She evidently was smart enough to circumvent what we intended a commercial kennel to be. So let that be a learning lesson to you all right now, and put in provisions and things that will prevent this from happening in the future. I appreciate the difficulties that you all have to endure each and every day, And for you all, it's several things, several times over, where for us, this is just one thing that is very important to us. I appreciate the fact that you have owned up to the fact that you have made a mistake and that due diligence was not made. But I think that changing the special exception kennel philosophy to be a non-conforming use is not necessary. I don't agree with that, and I don't agree with changing the setback rules. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Ms. Meadowcroft, you forgot to mention the fact that you personally were the one that has been responsible for 90% of the animal ordinances that we have in place in Wicomico County, and we thank you for that hard work that you did over several years, because I remember that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
worked, and I'm still the chairperson for the dog bite committee, and I thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Thank you for your service.
My name's Dan Beebe from the area around the kennel that we're talking about in Sharptown. I do want to play this for you. And I want to let you know that that recording was taken from 3 football fields away. I'm 1,107 feet away from that recording. Our argument was never meant to affect reasonably and responsibly run kennels. And I, for one, want to apologize that it got to that point. Not that that's all my fault, but we were the ones that were in here trying to get some satisfaction, because let me explain to you really quick the actual story. In July of 2022, someone entered the Planning and Zoning office to educate themselves on how to get a kennel license on an A1 zone piece of property outside Sharptown, Maryland. They were educated on that process, but instead of going home and checking the boxes to work that process, they found some verbiage in the law that they thought that they could take advantage of, and they moved 60 dogs in next to our homes with no due diligence, no process whatsoever. They did not, they were supposed to have a special exception, but they did not do that. So imagine yourself just one day waking up out of the blue and hearing that 300 feet away. I do want to apologize to the kennels that are doing it right, but I'm not going to apologize for standing up for ourselves, standing up for our rights, and standing up for our quality of life. I appreciate everybody in the council that has taken us seriously. So I do want to thank the council for taking this matter seriously from the beginning. We reached out to county executive office first after not getting satisfaction from planning and zoning and never received a response. The council member we reached out to responded the same day. I believe a great deal of heartache could have been avoided had that not been the case. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If it's okay, I'm going to change the subject. And also, I've brought stuff here. I'm not on social media myself, so I have to do it this way. Yeah. I'm Bruce Robson, Wicomico County, and I'm here on behalf of an all-volunteer group called Wicomico Clean. First, I'd like to thank all council members for taking the time with us individually to talk about the litter and illegal dumping in Wicomico County. Really appreciate your time. This week, my outlook about this issue, which I've been working on for about 14 months now, ranged from sort of down about it to quite optimistic. Why am I quite optimistic? Well, Saturday, we cleaned up a portion of Naylor Mill Road, including near the new sheriff's station, where we cleaned up. Looks great. It's always satisfying to see what you've cleaned up. Secondly, your willingness to take time individually to talk with us. And third, it appears the county is including a litter control position in the next budget, which is huge. We are sincerely appreciative of those efforts and hope it comes to fruition. We think that it will. Very appreciative of you and the county executives and administration on that. So why am I sort of down? Well, sort of down because it just keeps on coming. You know, not long ago, we cleaned up Naylor Mill Road. It looked great. When we were there Saturday, it was frankly awful. It was just awful. To paraphrase a recent quote from a councilman, one of you all, it was, how do you all keep at it? You must get really discouraged, you know, because you do it and then it's dirty. You do it and then it's dirty. And that's the reason why I'm a little bit down about it. But frankly, the optimism part is what is prevailing right now. We got some momentum. The litter control position is huge. The council and administration's attention to this issue is very encouraging. We have a real start. Let's keep this going. This is a picture from last weekend, 10 copies, which should pass out, of plastic bags that I alone picked up, or plastic, I'm calling it blowing plastic, that I alone picked up in a little more than an hour, on an area that had just been cleaned a month or so before, by the way. I estimate over 1/2 of what you see there is single-use plastic bags. I use the term blowing plastic because blowing plastic is a daily problem at our landfill. It's my understanding that 3 times a week a crew picks it up off the landfill slope. 3 times a week. This is in spite of using movable plastic traps on a constant basis. Again, a majority of this blowing plastic is single-use bags. We look forward to continue this discussion and making further process to making Wicomico County the cleanest county on the shore. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robeson. You guys are doing excellent work for this county, too, as volunteers. We appreciate it.
Hi, Mikkel Darlene, Wicomico County. I wanted to second what Bruce Robson said. My family and I, we try to make it out to every one of the cleanings. We love it. I encourage anybody out there to join us. It's satisfying, it's good work, and it helps our county.
And don't you double the number of volunteers as soon as your family shows up?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we bring a whole crew with us. We have 7 in our family, and we like to bring them all. Pivoting a little bit, I wanted to say I'm really grateful to see the collaborative efforts that happened today to fix the issue with the kennel. It was clearly an issue, the 1,000 feet. I appreciate the work that was done by everybody together to fix that problem. We've heard some things about social media here, and I will say that Mr. Beebe, what you've been going through has been contemporaneous with what our neighborhood went through with Safari at the Quarry. The first time we were in here speaking, Mr. Beebe was in here talking about what was happening with the kennel. So I heard about it then, and that's been well over a year now. At that point in time, I've been kind of in the council every minute since, just trying to deal with what our neighborhood's been through. But I've seen this. There's been multiple public hearings, workshops. There's been a lot of work around this kennel bill. There's been a lot of advertising. What happened with Safari at the Quarry was unilateral. It happened with nobody knowing. We didn't know until there was Facebook advertisements. When that happened, we did reach out to the county executive. We were ignored. Instead of getting any type of satisfaction, I received that phone call I spoke about in the ethics, where I was yelled and screamed at and told not to speak out. This is a problem for transparency. This is a problem for our government. On this particular social media site, stories were run about this that were not true, and we were quoted to be the ones that were producing non-true facts. Mr. Campbell, I met with you and brought my facts and showed you, and it was pleasant, and we had a good conversation. None of it was disputed that you thought these things that I brought to you were true. Later on, we are once again disparaged. What ends up on social media is often one side of a story. And it's very hard as lay people, as a mother of 5 kids in the county, as somebody who volunteers and tries to help and do things better. I don't want to spend my time fighting these political battles. This isn't what I want to do with my life. I want to be able to talk, to be heard, to compromise, and to find solutions. I think that we all need to do better. But don't be fooled by everything you see on social media. Thank you.
Thanks, Eileen. Any other public comments?
My name is James Donnelly from Wicomico County. My wife just nailed it there with her comments. The press release by Executive Giordano on the kennel legislation appears to target the council in a non-productive, and aggressive, and demeaning manner. It should be noted that the executive legal team, not the council, largely contributed to drafting this new legislation. When the increase from 200 to 1,000 was brought up, no opposition was voiced by either party. It proceeded to a unanimous vote in approval. I've followed this issue, and I believe it's been discussed for at least 2 years, maybe just over one, but for quite a while. Were no kennels informed until now? I think better communication could have been done. I believe there's room for compromise, such as grandfathering existing kennels, special exceptions, etc. I guess we've heard a lot about that already. This compromise could be done without additional acrimony. As very happy clients of Weeping Willow Kennel, we will definitely support a compromise that protects their business. We also just want to see our two branches of government working together in a truthful, fair, respectful manner, instead of through press releases that cause drama and division. The council is responding to the people. The 1,000 feet change is clearly a problem, but they are willing to work towards a resolution without the drama and acrimony. Our executive's approach builds fear and division through nasty press releases that creates unproductive discourse. I urge Executive Giordano to work together with the council instead of alienating them for personal and political gain. Thank you.
Jolene?
For me, hi, I'm Janet Messick. I own the Wicomico. I own the doghouse, boarding kennel. I wasn't going to say anything because I'm so appreciative of this all going like it did, because you probably made me lose 5 pounds last week, so thanks. But it has been horribly detrimental to me. I have a spiel here about how
Could you bring the mic closer? Thank you.
because I've been open for 36 years. I'm short. And this is my life. My children are here because they're going to take it over when I no longer want to do it. I still love to do it. I'm not ready to quit. I don't want to close because of a bad decision you made. My husband and I worked hard to make this busy and successful, and he's gone. Sorry. So I just want to continue. I'm going to thank you for what you did. As far as social media, I'm sorry. I am off Eastern Shore Undercover because I'm tired of hearing you guys bicker. I don't want to hear it anymore. I just want you to do your jobs. But my kids call me, my customers bombarded me and said, do something about this, what's going on? We have a whole lot of really nice kennels in Wicomico now, not when I started, and we should be appreciative of them. We're all trying really hard not to be a nuisance. I'm sorry these guys are going through this because we're trying hard not to do that. We love our neighbors, we love our community. I've lived here forever. I'm old, I've lived here forever, and I love this place. So I just want to thank you for what you've come up with. I don't know if it's perfect, but I'm happy. I want to continue. My kids want to continue to work hard and be successful. So thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations on your successful business, too. Any other public comments? Seeing none, council comments. Oh, sorry.
Hello, Kim Knock, the Executive Director of the Humane Society of Wicomico County. I would just like for you guys to look at the definition of commercial kennel and make sure that the Humane Society does not fall under that category. We need all these hardworking people to take care of our dogs when they go on vacation. But when I'm reading it, I think it could be misconstrued. I think that someone could hire an attorney and go after us on that aspect. We're getting ready to build an entirely new shelter, moving a quarter of a mile down the road. I've knocked on every door within 3/4 of a mile of that shelter, and everyone is in full support. But that doesn't mean that couldn't change. In a few years, someone else could move into a home, and that would be, worrisome to them. I also think you might look at putting something in where dogs have to be pulled into an indoor kennel area after a certain hour of the evening, because I know with our new shelter, we're going to have guillotine doors that open up and the animals will be able to go outside during the day, but at night they'll be locked inside of the building. So that might be something, not for the existing kennel owners, because they've built their kennels the way they are and that was approved, but for any new kennel that's being built, if it's within a certain distance, that might help with the public accepting them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Knock, I can't say enough the great job you're doing with the Humane Society. It's fantastic. Any other public comments? Yes, Tracy.
Just wanted to make sure I got this on the record. With respect to the question that Councilman Hastings asked, I went down and consulted, because this predates my tenure. The Kennel Club was actually approved in LB1 as a private club, so they don't fall under the kennel definition.
See?
See, you
You
learned.
understand?
It's responsive government right there.
Right. Excellent. Thank you. Any more public comments? Seeing none. Council comments. Shane?
So I'm not going to point my finger at anybody today. I'm going to point it at myself. I had a great conversation with Pat Atkins a few days ago, and I told him, I said, I made a mistake on this 1,000-foot setback. And I want the public to know what I was thinking when I did it. Mr. Beebe come up here numerous times the last few meetings and played the barking dog, and I had it in my head, and I'm like, man, I couldn't imagine being at my home where I'm supposed to be safe, I'm supposed to be comfortable, and all I hear is barking dogs, barking dogs. Well, I've had a lot of dogs, so in my head I'm like, well, 1,000 feet, that should be good enough, you know, that should work. Not thinking, and I wasn't thinking, that 1,000-foot radius of a property, pretty much you wouldn't even be able to own a kennel, existing kennel, or a future kennel in Wicomico County. And numerous people, like Mr. Atkins, reached out to me and, you know, are you thinking about this? Do you realize what happened here? And I told Mr. Atkins, I said, this was my fault. I was the one that recommended the 1,000 feet. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to fix it Tuesday. Somehow, some way, I said, if we can't fix it on the council, I'm not going to override the veto. This is going to be fixed. It was wrong. We made a mistake. Let's fix it. Let's own it. So I'm owning it. But in my head, that's where I was at. You know, this citizen kept coming up and saying, man, this is a problem. This is a problem with my neighbors. We're having to listen to this constantly. And we kept hearing it and kept hearing it. So in my head, I was like, well, I'm gonna try to fix this. Well, I made a mistake, and we fixed it. And I apologize for those that it put you in a worry state, but we corrected it.
Thank you. Comments? Shane?
Mayor, I'm following and piggybacking on what Shane said. The gentleman kept coming, and I think someone else came the last meeting, explained the hearing of dogs barking. I know when I lived in the city of Salisbury, one of the problems were pit bulls and the constant barking, and people were raising them and wasn't taking care of them. But each time I come to a council meeting, I learned something. And then I read some of the letters of concern with the kennel. I was familiar with the Kennel Club, but actually I didn't know we had 8 kennels in the county. And that's a learning tool. So again, communication, when people are involved, as I've said before, both sides should work together so there won't be any conflict. I wasn't doing anything mean or vicious to the kennel people, because I love dogs, but we made a mistake because of the gentleman that came and played that noise that he hears all the time, and we never heard from the kennel clubs. So we heard from them. I read some of the letters, and I told them I understood what they were talking about, and we didn't want to close up their businesses. I wouldn't dare want to close up somebody's business been working for years and years with animals, because it would show that they love the animal and take care of them. My only concern would be puppy mills, things like that, I would have a problem with, but legitimate kennels, I would not want to see them go out of business. So it wasn't anything about kennel clubs, it was about the noise. And I just like seeing people out here face to face. I like the letters, but I also like to see the people that object to some of the things we do. And I appreciate, because it's always a learning experience for me.
Councilman Shields? Josh?
Yeah, I just want to underscore how, well, first of all, thank you everyone who's here today who took the time to come here. We do appreciate that. Also, just want to say, underscore how democracy works. This is a situation where we had, this has been an ongoing issue. Wicomico County doesn't have a great history even in a very recent history with regard to humane actions. And I don't mean dogs, but you remember a couple of years ago the issue in Hebron with the 20 horses. We had the 40 dogs on the other side. There was a petting zoo. Pardon me. There was a zoo that was in somebody's backyard that may or still not exist. I'm not really sure. We have some really awful situations that the county in our very recent history has affected not just dogs, but the broader animal welfare. So I guess that is kind of the backdrop at which I think the county was trying to make a more all-inclusive or more, capture more of this particular issue. And so when you try to do something really challenging like that, sometimes you make mistakes. So, but as soon as the mistake was made, immediately the public spoke up. I want to acknowledge, of course, social media being a component of that. I know some people think social media is a cesspool. Some people think social media is really great, and that's what they look forward to. And I don't know. There's I see WBOC in the back, and there's other great. There's a lot of folks who help get the messaging out. This is a part of democracy, media in general. We need journalists. We need folks to be able to bring up issues and to be able to share it with the most amount of folks as possible. So I just want to acknowledge. This is how government works. And at any point in time, by the way, we can continue to take up another bill and continue to refine it so that things get better and so that not just our dogs are respected, but also other animals in the county. And then last thing I just say is, in that note, let's continue to use all of our available networks, whether that be social media or others, to try to continue to improve things. You heard about our trash issue here. Mr. Campbell and others I see, it'd be great to be able, maybe Eastern Shore Undercover could put together a cleanup day. There's things like that we can do together as a community, and maybe the Kennel Club, maybe there's other folks, maybe the kennels in general. I don't know, but one way or another, we got to do better as a society in trying to continue to improve what's here and use the tools that are available. And democracy is one of those tools. Media is another. They continue to work to make things better. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Judge.
Mr. Cannon mentioned about Ola working on animal legislation. I think Ola will remember about 17 years ago. I first came on the council, there was a incident in Willards where 2 or 3 dogs drug a 8-year-old off his bicycle and just about killed him. And that was our first experience, my first experience. I guess the county had experiences before with doing animal control, but that was probably one of the most horrific things if you'd seen the pictures of that young man and what those dogs did to him. And Ola was working in planning and zoning, and we put together a committee, and we enacted some leash laws and got things. To one of the speaker's comments about this still doesn't work, they might have not been paying attention. We're going to revisit this in a year, and I hope a lot of these kennel owners will come in and say, this isn't working or this is working. And there is still the special exception. So, that's probably, like I said earlier, one of the more important parts of this legislation. Mr. Benson made a comment about Prince George's and Montgomery County using to reconsider. I guess we're not the only ones that mess up every now and then. I guess they have to go back and reconsider. Sounds like a lot or occasionally. So we did what we needed to do today, and if it's not right within a year, we will revisit it. And I'm sure the Planning and Zoning Department will be looking at it. So thank you.
James?
Yeah. Sorry I wasn't here at the last meeting. Life happens, but I'm glad that we got this right. Even though I didn't vote for it, I'm glad it's done. It's done and it's taken care of. And I'm happy. But I just wanted to reiterate about the social media. I think times are changing. I know social media can be extremely divisive, but unfortunately it's how people get a lot of their news, whether it be through WBOC or you're looking up a weatherman on Facebook. You could be looking up a certain politician on Facebook. I'm not using the executive as an example, even though she has one, but there's multiple people that have different social medias that you can get direct information from. And that being said, I firmly believe that this council should entertain the idea of having some sort of presence online besides the website, where whether it be having a Facebook page where we just do a press release or an update of what's happening. Doesn't have to be interactive because we don't want to entertain division, but something that we can say, hey, look, we've got this on the agenda, yada, yada, and then you can share it to your friends, whatever, because that's how news travels these days. That being said, on that front, I also have a town hall coming up on March 5th. I invited the council. You all are more than welcome to come. I hope you all come. And anyone in the audience, if they would like to come, it's going to be at the Hebron Lions Club. This topic that I'd like to discuss is going to be more towards the west side, towards the Hebron area. So if you live in that area, I encourage you to come to the Lions Club on March 5th at 6 to 8. 6 to 8. And we're going to talk about the intersection on 50 where Wright's Market is. We're going to talk about what that will look like, and we're going to talk about what the thoughts are in the general area of the park on Leavenworth Shield Road, which is also known as West Metro Core. We're going to talk about what people are really feeling about that. So it is March 5th, and I believe, let me just check my calendar, John, if you don't mind. I don't want to give people the wrong time. March 5th. Yeah, I believe, yeah, it should be 6 to 8. Daggone it, hold on. I really don't want to give someone the wrong time here. I took a picture of my flyer.
Is that AM or PM? Jim?
It's PM, John. Okay, here it is. It's March 5th, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Hebron's Lions Club. And if anyone would like to attend, I would love to hear some feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Jeff?
I'd just like to thank everybody, as always, for coming out today. It's important to hear feedback, good and bad, on anything. This kennel legislation, I'd like to thank the kennel owners and operators for coming out. When this bill was designed, it was to clarify the definition of a kennel, and it became apparent very quickly that there were some unintended consequences, which, as you can see, we've hopefully rectified today. This council literally began working on this the morning after the last meeting, when we started getting phone calls and emails. Over the past 2 weeks, I've spoken with 4 kennel owners, Humane Society, Animal Control. Some conversations lasted longer than an hour. Some people I've had multiple conversations with. Friday, after we determined that we were going to reconsider this bill, I reached back out to these same people to let them know what was going on and what to expect today. I'd like to thank the County Attorney's Office and the Planning and Zoning Department for, again, helping us through this process. And to clarify, I think one of the speakers came up and maybe was a little confused, that saying that the 500 feet is going to put the existing kennels out of business. It's actually not. They're already under special exception, and they will not be affected by this 500 foot. They will be able to continue as they are. Last Thursday, I went to Annapolis, had the opportunity to talk to a lot of our legislators from all over the state, and there were some tough conversations, mostly centered around money or lack thereof. But we collectively agreed that there's some tough decisions that are on the road right in front of us. I'm interested to see what the county audit presentation looks like for FY24, because that will help us plan the path forward. We can't figure out where we're going until we know where we've been. So looking forward to that audit presentation. It was recently announced there's a new state park coming in Wicomico. That's exciting. I've received several comments so far down off of Nanacoke Road, and some are in support of it, and as you can imagine, some are not. Nothing is going to please everybody. I want to bring up the Delmarva power bills, which thankfully don't fall under the county council or the executive, but I am glad I don't have to plug in an electric car every night. I do want to mention that your electric bill is not the fault of the Delmarva Power people that you see riding around in the trucks. Kind of give them some grace. They're the ones that are going to restore your power after the snow event that we're going to have in 2 days. So they didn't make this decision. And I was told by one of my friends who works for Delmarva Power, they don't get a discount on their electric either. They have to pay electric bills too. So just keep that in mind. My friend told me they've been getting a lot of single-fingered salutes out on the road. So let's just keep that in mind. As I said, looks like we're having a snow event tomorrow, the next day. Please be safe. Give the plow crew some room to work. Get your car off the street if you can. And for our friends in the fire department, clear out the area around your fire hydrant in case they need to use it. And that's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I was in Annapolis as well with Jeff, and Ms. Hurley was there, and other members of the council. Josh was there. I wish we could do more in reference to the Delmarva Power bills. As I understand it, there's Empower Maryland, which is a process that was put in place by the legislature where increases were added to your electric bill so they could help offset programs that the state of Maryland wanted to implement. So that was part of it. I wish we could also had more control over the assessment office, because just like everyone in this room, when you're getting assessments that says, oh, well, in the last 3 years, your property value has tripled, there's a problem with that, and in many cases doubled. So, but that is with the state assessment office. I don't think it's as personable an agency as it used to be, though I have a lot of respect for their work and what they do. But it's becoming very difficult. I think the state has a mandate on what it wants to do, and they want those tax dollars. Fortunately, in Wicomico County, the only thing I can tell you is that no matter how high your assessments go, we have the revenue cap in place, 2% revenue cap, which will lower your tax rate as the assessments increase. So as the assessments increase and the values of the properties throughout Wicomico County increase, we will have to lower your tax rate to account for that, so that we can only bring in 2% more revenue than the year before. So that's something that we have put in place since 2006, I believe, and it is paramount that we maintain the revenue cap in Wicomico County, because it allows us to spend within our means. So that's a benefit to everyone in Wicomico County. It's funny, I appreciate as well everyone that's come out here today and the input that we've had from so many of the businesses that have been so successful in the county. We want to make sure that everybody thrives and does well. I'd say probably about a year ago, there was a famous comment that was made that this council only works 2 days a month. Couldn't be further from the truth. I figure my minimum is about 25 hours a week, minimum 25 hours a week. I know in the last couple of weeks I've talked to every member in this council here, and I can't thank them enough for their help and their understanding with what we've done. Mr. Benson's been invaluable, so has Mrs. Hurley, and Ms. England, as far as making sure that everything that needs to be done and brought to this table properly has occurred. Tracy as well has done an excellent job, Tracy Taylor and Andrew Illuminati, in trying to just measure out the dynamics of what's involved in such a simple piece of legislation. I had a conversation with my wife I'd say about 4 or 5 days ago, and then her very loving and understandable tone said, you know, John, you've had more conversations with Jeff Merritt this week than you have with me. So, and she was right. It's our anniversary day, by the way. So,
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you.
Congratulations.
So that being said, my only other question is whether or not, James, you're serving food at this town hall.
No.
Keep in mind that the council likes to support other council members. If there's a majority of council members, there's a majority of council members in the town hall with James, it's not a violation of the Open Meetings Act or anything of that nature, unless we actually, as a group, discuss legislative matters. So we can all show up at the same time, have an excellent night, and listen to what James has to say and what the public has to say. That being said, entertain a motion to adjourn from legislative session to go into open work sessions.
So moved.
Followed by a closed work session pursuant to the general provisions, Article Section 3-305B7, to consult with legal counsel to discuss possible overpayments to protect the attorney-client privilege, then followed by an administrative closed session pursuant to Section 3-104 to discuss the proposed fiscal year 26 budget with staff.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all again very much.
You gonna take 30, John?
We're going to take a 30-minute recess, and then we will come back with our open work sessions. Thank you.
Can I get up?
Reconvening for the Wicomico County Council Legislative Session 2025-04 for February 18th, 2025. The first item on the agenda for our open work session is the capital improvement program for fiscal year 2026 through 2030. Ms. Pam Owen is here, Director of Finance. Would you like the floor to start out anything?
I don't honestly, I mean, we went through all the departments that the council had requested, and we, I believe, answered the questions that council had. So I am here because council requested, and so if you have any further questions that I can either clarify today or get back to you with, I will be glad to do that.
All right, thank you. Any council members? Jeff?
I got a question about the health department.
Yes.
The 2.7 million in FY '26 says it possibly could be used for the addition of an elevator.
A renovation, either an addition or a renovation of the elevator, that wouldn't be included in the total of the $2.7 million. It's not, 2.7 isn't just the elevator. 2.7 is to start to do the build out so that the facility would be available so we can get out of the Hurdle building.
So we're still getting revenue from the lease, right?
Correct, so we can't start any build out at the moment.
So but where is that revenue going?
The general fund, which is ultimately going to cover the costs of health department costs that we currently have.
So the revenue from the lease payment will ultimately be applied to?
Revenue from the lease payment is, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, the revenue from the lease payment is going to ultimately be applied to the renovation of the Verizon building, right?
Renovation of the lease payment became part of general fund revenues, which helped balance the budget for 2025, which includes costs for the health department. So we view it as it is part of the revenue of the general fund, and those revenues either have helped pay for everything that we have in the general fund, which includes council and finance and purchasing, all those things. But if we have savings in 2025, that would drop to the bottom line. Some of that dropping to the bottom line would then be available for costs for projects.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't recall, and I guess we can go back in the minutes from when we first started the process of buying the Verizon building, what the estimated cost to renovate was. Do you have any idea what that was?
I do not remember. I do remember us discussing the concept that a renovation would be necessary. I will say that the health department had requested that the elevator be in a later year and not be part of this first phase. But ultimately, we made the decision to combine the two, because if we're not currently in the building and there's upgrades that need to be done to that elevator, it makes more sense when you're not there to do the elevator versus to have to shut down an elevator once you are already in there staffed and have a possible necessity for getting people up to the second floor.
So it's not for a new elevator, it's to renovate the elevator that's there now?
At the moment, the current plan is to renovate the elevator that is there now. And so there is not, the thought is that elevator isn't sufficiently large enough to handle what might need to go up and down the floor. And so, again, if we only have one elevator in the building, which we do, if we're going to do that renovation to that elevator, it makes more sense to do it while the building is empty than versus once you've already put staff and have the public coming into the building, renovating an elevator is harder to do.
I was wondering if, I guess maybe we need to get in there and compare that elevator to this elevator in this building, because we only have one elevator here, right?
Correct.
And,
So again, we are in the process, and since I was not prepped, I do not know the answer. I know that they were in the process of putting out to bid the concept of somebody designing that facility. I don't know where we stand in that process. I can ask the question, but I don't have that answer at this moment.
I guess it would be good, for us to have a breakdown of where this $2.6 million?
$2.7.
$7 million is going, 80,000 here, 100,000.
Well, that's the problem is until we have a plan, I don't have that. This is an estimate, and that's why I can get you an update as to where we stand on a plan, but until we actually have a plan, it would be me throwing at a dartboard.
And this isn't you, because somebody gave you this number, so you're just saying somebody threw a number out there?
We had discussions as to what we thought needed to be done, but until you have a finalized plan, everything is an estimate, and until you actually do a bid, everything is an estimate, and that is how CIPs always work. We have taken industry averages, we've had some conversations, but until we actually have a definitive plan, and we may have to decide that the elevator is sufficient because 2.7 is not enough money to do everything we need to do for the regular part of the building. Or we could find that $2.7 million, we don't need all that money. But until we have that plan and actually send it out to bid, I don't have that answer.
Thank you. That's a good answer.
I think my concern really is that, we buy a building for a little over $3 million. And it was a great deal, of course, with a lease in place as well. But I would have never agreed to buy a building for $3 million if someone were going to tell me that it's going to cost me another $3 million to retrofit it, to upgrade it.
So
never. For $6 million, we could have gotten probably something much nicer, much newer.
The estimates that we had to actually build from scratch was about $9 to $12 million.
Well,
So again, we have this. The $3 million not only got us the ability to renovate the building that's there, but it also got us the ability to have additional land, which, yes, there would be a potential for an additional cost to build another building there, but to build a Verizon building size from scratch, the estimates we were provided was $9 to $12 million.
Well, the only thing I can say is it would have been nice to have had those estimates, because when we did an actual personal tour and we evaluated, and I believe the health director was there as well, there's never any mention of the fact that, this building is never going to be adequate. Everything was 100% positive. And again, there was no mention of a $9 million, there's no mention of a $3 million. So I could understand renovations to a certain degree, that's expected. But to spend as much on a building and renovations as you do in the actual cost of the building without even considering the fact that, hey, maybe there's a $6 million building that's brand new that completely does suit our purposes, I think would have been more justifiable. Shane?
Kind of where my head's at, and I want to hear what you have to say about it. If we're getting, what is it, $50,000 a month on that building? Roughly 60. I know we all want everything, and so do I at times, want everything right now. I want it now. Why couldn't we take that money, put it in a kitty, wait a year, and then we have that money that we earned, that income coming in, instead of rushing into that building, and then we can use that money to do the renovations?
So the decision was made during the budget process that the money was part of the general fund revenue. That is what was made when it was presented to the council, and I believe, I will not say this with 100% certainty, but I believe it was pointed out to council that this was in the budget as part of the total dollars as revenue for 2025. So that was used to make the bottom line for the budget that we are currently operating under.
I'm trying to remember. I should know, but I forgot. If we're getting that 50,000, 60,000 a month, if we move in, let's say next month, does that end or?
Yes.
It does.
So if we would move in before the lease is over, then we are saying that we would have to give them notice, but we are saying that we would no longer like the lease payments. I believe the lease payments only go into the fall of 2025.
Well, I agree with John. It was a good deal. I walked through the building. It's a nice building. But with everything that we know that's coming from the feds, from the state, the money issues that we have to worry about, what would be the problem? Tell me, if we were just to continue getting those lease payments.
Lease ends in the fall, so we will then be sitting with a building that doesn't earn us any revenue, and we are not renovating it for our purposes. So we're literally sitting on an empty building.
What's the date in the fall?
It's before December 31st. So again, we are intending to not start any kind of building until after this project, after the lease is over.
Okay.
So there is no intention for us to end the lease early.
Okay.
That has never been the plan, is that we are intending to maintain that lease until its ending date. We are working on getting a plan in place so that when that lease does end, we can start the renovations for the next phase of moving the health department out of the Hurdle building.
So if we're making 60 a month off of it, how much would you, how much do you think that we've made from since we've acquired that building?
I had provided at one point to Laura that information. I don't have that off, again, I don't have that information off the top of my head. I mean, if it's approximately $60,000 a month, then we're talking, we're getting $600 or $720,000 in fiscal 2025. Right. Doing the math in my head. And I readily admit I'm an accountant, but I do much better with a pen and paper or a calculator. So if my math is wrong, he will tell me.
I'm just thinking we've had this thing, this will be, I guess, year 2 since we've had it, once we start the building process of it. So it sounds like to me we'll have half of it paid by just the lease on the building alone.
That was the beauty of it. It was about $1.5 million that was going to offset the cost of 3. That was the beauty of it.
That's from what I remember. That was part of the selling feature and why we were like gung-ho about this.
So yes, again, the purchase price was about $3 million, but we were going to collect about a third of that money in lease payment before we ever occupied the building.
Right. Yeah.
And again, we can't start renovating. The minute we ask to be in the building, then our lease payments end. Okay. So we have no intentions of asking to end the lease. I don't believe Verizon actually has anybody in the building. I think they have, at the time, there previously were 2 people, but I'm not even sure there's 2 people in there anymore.
That's crazy.
That is, I don't believe there is 2 people still in that building.
Sorry.
But they still have been making their payments. We've been getting our payments every month from them, and we get those transfers.
And we are going to sell the Hurdle building, which is where the health department is right now.
That is the intention, because we don't believe the building is an adequate facility for the government workers.
I'm just asking for conversation. Do we know how much we could get for that?
I do not know.
Okay. Okay.
We have not had an appraisal done on it. I mean, again, the building, as everybody in this room is well aware, has water problems in the basement. And so it either would require a major renovation and or whoever buys it decides that the land is more useful and that that it would make more sense to demolish. But I am not a real estate person, so I can't tell you who would decide which way.
All right.
I would think, not to speak for the council, but I really would think that the 2.7 is somewhat of an arbitrary number. And that being said, I think that speaking of arbitrary numbers, which can get us in trouble, I would rather see something that seems to be somewhat more realistic, such as in 26, maybe the director wants to suggest $250,000 or $300,000 for fiscal year 26. understanding that in order for the people to move in, they might need dividers, they might need more furniture. We're not sure it is fully furnished right now. But just as a precautionary measure, to come up with a realistic guideline for us to say, hey, I mean, to know at least within the next 12 months what that number might be, and maybe an acceptable number may be 300,000 max, if we don't move the entire amount into 27, and have him come back to make an amendment or a transfers if he need be for
currently-
any expenditures in fiscal year 26.
So currently, the intention was to bond that fund. So if council makes a decision that this is not an item that they want in fiscal 26, then it would not be eligible for us to be putting in the bonding process, because as you're well aware, we start that process basically after the budget is struck to meet our deadlines of the end of October, beginning of November timeframe. So you do in a bonding process, again, if it's not something that we have ever historically done, but if in all the legislation that we have done in the past associated with bonding, it gives us the ability to do a series or one issuance or a series of issuances to meet our costs. So we could include it in our bonding number and then make the decision as we get closer to going to market that maybe now's not the time to go to market for that project, but then you have already passed the authority to bond for it in the future.
Yeah, that's a very serious point. I apologize. It's right in front of me. I overlooked at the bonding. And that being the case, I would not want to bond this project in fiscal year 26. I just would not. I'd much rather see a more realistic, I don't care whether it's a plan or not, I'd much rather see a more realistic plan where maybe he asks for even PAYGO of maybe $200,000 or $300,000. I think that would be more realistic. And again, as you've always said, it's only a plan. We can always certainly make amendments. We've done it before where if we have to make transfers later.
Yeah, there is that possibility. Now, again, without an adopted CIP, before we come to you in April, we will be putting this in. I will obviously take these suggestions into, but there won't be anything adopted. So we will take a look at what everything is associated with all the costs that we're looking at when we come to you with the third week in April.
Sure.
I think I heard you say.
I have to look at this and think about the Civic Center. They came to us, wanted $500,000. Now, I mean, what is it, $5 million, right, to do the Civic Center before the ground was even broken. They come back and wanted, another $3.5 million, $4 million? What's this going to be? Is this going to be a $3 million building that's going to need $5 million worth of renovation? No faith in what's going on here.
I got
Shane, go ahead, Shane.
Shane, I think you were.
That's me.
Shane.
I just want to say, not on your standpoint, but the health department, the Verizon building. I think for me, it doesn't necessarily have to reflect in here, but I would like to see the breakdown of where they get this $2.7 million from the health department. How much will it cost to renovate the elevator? How much it would cost to do the improvement in the office space? Just break down to show justification for asking it for that amount of money. I mean, I don't know if you
As I said, until we have a significant plan, I can't tell you. I can give you estimates all day as to.
It shouldn't come from you. Why
Yeah, but I
come
mean,
from health
ultimately, the estimates flow through finance, because finance is the place that has all the money aspects associated with it. Until we actually have a physical plan, everything is an estimate. I can get you the estimate as to how we came up to the $2.7 million, but it is an estimate. And so I will readily admit that there have been times when we have presented estimates and then those estimates change and it moves around and we get told, hey, well, you gave us this estimate that was split 100,000 here, 500,000 here, $1 million here. Why isn't it that? Well, because that was an estimate and now we've got better numbers. I will gladly get everybody an estimate as to how we came up to the $2.75 million. The piece that I will say that, I will state it right now. It will be an estimate, and it will change.
I'm just saying, you do the estimate, not the health department.
We worked with the health department based on the information that they had and what they were looking at, and we also talked with general services, and so it was not done in a vacuum.
Jeff? Jeff?
Pam, it looks to me like the big ticket item here is the elevator. Why couldn't we just reach out and put that out for bid and get a number that would be an estimate, but it would be something a little bit more refined than $2.75 million?
It doesn't say that, Jeff. It just says costs could include elevator addition and or replacement. It doesn't say it's for it. It just says it could.
It's part of the overall package.
Yeah, we probably need to clarify all of this.
Yeah. Is this something that we want to do, the bond? Is this something we want to bond? Because she needs to know as soon as possible. If it's not something we want to bond, then it sounds like to me we can work with it with what we have.
Shane?
And again, I'm not faulting you. I'm not. But normally, whether it be in the private world or the business world, you hire someone, hey, this is what we want to do with this building. We need an estimate. Give us the breakdown. They come in, they tell you what they're going to do. They put it on paper, they hand it to you. This kind of money, well, any kind of money that's taxpayer money, I need to see other than just a number, like what's the plan here?
So we have in this year's budget in 2025 to bid out doing those plans. Now, in government, we can't just call up an entity unless we have them under contract, like our HVAC company and our elevator company. We can't just call up a company and say, can you give me an estimate for what this work would cost? Because the minute they give us their estimate or give us any kind of plan outside of a formal bidding process, due to the size of this cost, they're precluded from bidding from us. So now we have potentially reached out to a vendor that we like and said, hey, can you give me an estimate on how much it would cost to renovate doing X, Y, and Z? Now they're no longer allowed to bid. Well, there's nobody in our community that's going to want to do that and then not be allowed to bid on the project, because you are prejudicing the project by asking them ahead of time. So under county procurement rules, until I go to a formal bidding process, I have no ability to do this with outside expertise.
Can't you put out a bid, though, and not accept any of the bids? And that way you would get the same results.
Well, but then those bids are now public documents.
Issue them later.
You rebid them again.
And everybody now knows what the highest bid was, the lowest bid was, where the middle bid was.
Is it legal? Is it legal to do that process?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is totally legal to do that process, but it's also, it then makes it potentially a more costly, we had an ability to contract for a computer system, and ultimately the decision was made, and we had a public number that was announced. We then made the decision that we needed to publicly bid that. Well, every public bid came in higher than the number that we had an original contract for, because everybody knew, well, they didn't accept this number, and now we're doing it in a formal bidding process. In a formal bidding process, we either reject and not have the project that we want, or we go with the numbers that have. So the minute we put something out to bid, those numbers become public record, and everybody knows what the range of bids were for the next time they bid.
I think it would be probably similar to what James' point is, be a little bit more responsible, I think, as a bonded item, that we move this from 26 and put it into 27, since we don't have a full understanding. And if the administration wants to come back to us with a recommendation of a smaller amount, let's say 300,000 for immediate concerns, then we could consider that as an amendment to the CIP, however we want to process it.
As I stated, until this document is formally adopted, one way or the other, with amendments by council or not, this is the document I have to work with when creating the budget.
It would be nice, though, if you could possibly come back. I'm kind of speaking here about whether you might come back to us with a smaller number that could at least help justify more immediate concerns, anticipating that this may be the road we go down.
I will ask the questions, but I am concerned that it does not make sense to partially renovate a building, open it to the public, and then potentially have to close it again because we don't have the spaces that we need in the way that we need them.
And on the other side of that coin, I don't think it's very, very responsible or an easy pill for the public to swallow when we pay $3 million for a building and $3 million for renovations either. You know, it's just my thoughts. James?
I would just say I agree with Ms. Oland. I don't know that I don't know what that cost of deferment looks like, and I don't know how we come about that cost, but it's certainly a lot easier to get something done, get a project done very quickly when a building's open and no one's in it. You can make all the work there at once and then get everyone, back in action. So, but yeah, I don't know what that looks like if there's a way to find that out, but I don't.
Well, we've been in the elevator. We've all gone up and down in the elevator. Thing works great.
So what I was trying to say is, if we want to bond this thing, we need to make a decision, right? But if we don't, if we're okay with coming out of PAYGO, then it seems to me we can wait for an estimate, maybe, and then say we're okay with this, and then move on from it, instead of saying we're okay with $2,750, and then we wind up getting a bid for $2,750. Then we wind up getting a bid for $3.5 million because, or $2,750,000. So I don't know. I was just thinking it would be, it's up to the council if we want to bond this or not. And if we're going to bond it, we need to make a decision. If not, then we need to tell her we want to PAYGO this thing and then wait for an estimate and then put it in the CIP when it's needed.
What do you want to do?
Thought. I'm not for taking money out of the savings for this.
No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about whether or not we're going to bond $2.7 million in '26.
Mr. President?
Yes.
If I understood her correctly, they don't start that bonding process until the budget is adopted.
Correct, but again, if council wants to make a change to this document and have those wishes potentially reflected during the budget process, this document needs to be adopted before we ever submit the budget to you.
I'm just wondering whether the council wants to move forward with bonding the $2.75 million in '26.
I'm just questioning and she can't give me the information I need. Because I don't think the elevator would be, is it safe now? How can you renovate a elevator? How can you renovate an existing elevator?
They've been doing this one for years in this building. They keep working on it, and it keeps working.
Yeah, I know we have to, at Chipman, we have to have our elevator inspected for safety reasons. So I'm just saying, how can you renovate a existing elevator? You can't make it wider.
Well, that's the thing is if the building is empty, you can make the shaft bigger, smaller. You can change the method of it going up and down. Is it pneumatic? Is it a hoist? And again, I'm making up these terms as to what they are. I readily admit that. But again, when a building is vacant and you don't have the public needing an elevator, it's a whole lot easier to renovate an elevator, make it bigger, make it smaller, make it a different mechanical nature than while the building. So again, if I'm remembering correctly, the number for the elevator was about $500,000. All the other costs was $2.2 million. But again, the cost was the decision that generated this all being in 2026. It made more sense to not take an elevator offline once the building is occupied.
On this side, we have two here that don't want to see the bonding. Joe, no, Josh,
I'm fine with the administration's recommendation.
James.
I would like to see an estimate of this price, and I know you can't you give me an estimate, I would like to see, like, what the actual number is.
We're not going to get an estimate.
You're not
We've
going
been
to get
told
an
that.
estimate to probably fiscal '26.
So
So there is a consensus not to move forward with the bonding of the 2.75. How the health department or administration wants to counter that, and within the next, 30 days or whatever, time's getting really tight, we'll leave that up to you, okay?
Again, as this is an informal, council needs to adopt a CIP and make that recommendation. If
We'll
they-
do that, but in the interim, if there's any options that you might want to make in
Okay.
reference to that adoption, we're
Okay.
open to your suggestions. Something a little specific.
sounds to me like we might have bought a building that not working for us. We've got to spend as much on it to renovate it as we did to buy it.
I'm hoping
And
that's
as
not.
all these great deals come along, when they're trying to sell something to us, but,
We walked it.
Library.
We walked it. We saw it.
oh, I know.
We liked it.
I know.
It's a nice building.
Really nice building.
Okay, any other topics for consideration on the CIP? Pam, thank you. Any comments?
No,
Okay.
I'm good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan.
That's the next one, too. Next item is the proposed investment policy. This is very interesting, and we've had a meeting independently. We had a meeting with the finance director and the deputy director, Ms. Olin and I, and who was with us? Anybody else? Just, yeah, and so we appreciated that, giving us a heads up on what you were looking to do. Very smart, and I think it's going to be a really good idea, but we'll give you the floor.
So,
Charles,
and
you just-
Charles Schmeckel is also our Deputy Director of Finance. So we started looking at some of the policies associated with finance, and one of them is the investment policy that we have for the county. And we realized that the last time the investment policy was updated was 1998. So it has been a while since the investment policy has been updated. As such, I tasked Charles with, let's see what we can do to update this policy. And the main reason to look at the update of the policy is basically right now, the only thing we can invest in is basically called the Maryland Local Government Investment Pool. It's referred to as MLGIP. They are a subsidiary of PNC Bank, and they are recognized by the state. A lot of governments invest in them. But the money that we invest there is a spot market investment. So their investment rates change on a daily basis based on market conditions. So when I took over this role, we were on interest rates that were like 0.3%, 0.4%, less than 1%. And as those interest rates have started to grow, we have started to take a look at how can we ensure that some of our money with the county locks in some of those longer interest rates and longer investment rates and still be financially secure and not have an investment risk. So Charles went out and took a look at state law. He talked to our investment advisors that we hired in fiscal '25. They're either referred to as CashVest or 3+1. You might have met them, some of you, at a Mako event. We have talked to Davenport, who helps us with our bonding and doing a financial model. We also talked to our bond counsel, and we talked to our county counsel. We started with a policy that was created by the Government Finance Officers Association, the GFOA, which is the ruling body for all accounting associated with county governments. And we then tailored it with all those people making suggestions. And basically, the suggestions made allow us more flexibility, but still are risk adverse for the most part, actually in the all part, to allow us to possibly lock in some of our returns for longer periods of time. Because right now our policy, we can't lock anything in longer than a year. So basically at 364 days, all of our investments have to turn over. So we couldn't go out and get a CD, we couldn't go out and get a bond, we couldn't go out and do anything that would lock in today's interest rates past a year from now. Who knows what interest rates? I do not have a crystal ball. That is not my area of expertise. But in the fluctuating market that we have, and the fact that we do actually have more available funds, because in also that time period that we have been here, Charles and I, we've grown our fund balance. And so there is some funds that we could set aside into a more longer-term investment to guaranteed longer-term returns. The thought would be is that we wouldn't invest all the money that we want to have longer-term rates in one time and have it all come due at one time. We would look at staggering those terms so that we have things with longer interest rates going for longer periods of time. And at a point in time that if interest rates we don't want to lock something in, we bring it back to MLGIP because that option is always available to us. So we're asking council to let us bring this investment policy up to date with all of the information that we have gathered from all the different entities that have advised us, and let us adopt this, and thus we can start. And then with CashVest's help, we will actually start diversifying our investments.
Nod your heads.
Yeah.
If you
Yep.
understood
Sounds good.
any.
I know, no, yeah.
Sounds good.
Yes.
It looks like the last time this was done, Phil Tillman was the president of the council.
Jim Schiller was the finance director, yeah.
Gosh, wow. Go ahead, Josh.
Just only questions in my mind are some of the ones. So I guess going from what is on the council's page 155 to page 165, the old diversification to the new diversification, you're talking about 4 options to then becoming 11 potential options. Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct.
And then the percentages next to them, I'm assuming that means we could, out of the, within that diversification, our portfolio could be up to the percentage next to it, if I'm understanding that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the only ones the main thing that popped out to me, which one of you have already answered, which was, of course, what was the Maryland Local Government Investment Pool? I know that was a part of the previous one. That continues. I think I have an understanding, so maybe I'll back out on that. I guess the only other thing there is, the mortgage-backed securities. I remember, from the 2009 crisis, that was a big situation. And of course, we may be in a bubble now, so that's the only one that really stuck out to me as something that could be potentially dangerous. And I see, of course, it's limited at 25% is what we have in here, but certainly, something that could be a little more, probably a little more risk, have a little more risk than the other option. So I don't know if I guess in pulling that all together, is there anything that you'd like to say with regard to this particular diversification and the amounts within it? If there's anything where we're being more risk averse or where we intend to be more risk acceptant?
Right. So most of these investments, or the percentages allowed, those are industry standards. 3+1 are the one that suggested this.
And you say industry standards for government. This is not, we're not investing in the stock market. This isn't, you're not, Bitcoin is not a part of this, right?
Oh, God, no.
Right.
I don't even invest my own stuff in
this is for
some of
very
that.
safe assets in general, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So let me make sure that it's clear that any one of these assets pose some sort of risk. I can think of any scenario, I'd have to put a tinfoil hat on some of these, but there's always going to be risk. I don't want to put 25% in mortgage-backed securities, but there might become a point to where that will happen. The state of Maryland recently redid their investment portfolio, and they did quite a bit with something called repurchase agreements. Basically, somebody would need a loan, and so it would just be an overnight loan, but it would have a significant interest rate, and the state of Maryland has actually done quite well by these. Now, I'm not saying that I'm ready to put all our chips on black, if you will, or even all the chips on 13, but we do want to be able to have the options backed by expert advice to make sure that we are getting the most bang for our buck and to make sure that we are being diversified. Your MLGIP, even that itself, it has something called discount notes. It has commercial paper, which are, again, bonds from private companies or publicly traded companies. It also is comprised of agency floating rates, agency discount notes, money market funds, again, repurchase agreements, U.S. Treasuries, and so even that in itself utilizes a lot of these investments in here, so.
And the other thing is that other pieces of this, if you go back to Section 6, it talks about, actually Section 7, it would be, they have to be well-regarded entities associated with Standards & Poor and Moody's. So we're not going to invest in something that's a B-rated entity. We're looking at things that have to be at least AA. So they have to have a good rating for us to be willing to invest in them. So yes, these percentages were recommendations to us, but I'm more risk adverse than Charles, so we probably balance ourselves out very, very well. And we're both accountants, so we're risk averse. So we would prefer to make sure that the county's funds are invested in places, but we also don't want to put it all in one place that we then can't access it if there is a need for it. So again, we're not looking at moving 100% of our current investments out of MLGIP. What we're looking for is to some of those items that might have a longer-term nature, some of those funds that have the ability to have a longer-term nature, let us lock in today's interest rates to hopefully smooth out some of those curves.
So, I'm sorry.
Or just, I think you already started to answer my last question on that part, though. It's just basically on the liquidity of this. Do we feel like we have, and I got to go back and read through it since I wrote up my original notes, but do we feel like this is still generally, there's no liquidity issues, I guess?
Correct. And again, yes, you are with this policy by not specifically stating that X% must stay at MLGIP or something super liquid. You are relying on the people that are advising you, both Cash Vest and your finance directors. But again, we know on a daily basis, Charles monitors how much money we have in our Bank of America bank account and what invoices we're going in and out the door. And so on a daily basis, we're making a decision as to whether or not we need money out of MLGIP to pay those costs, or we have excess money at Bank of America and we need to send money over to MLGIP. That is something that goes on every day as it currently stands. We don't want to put ourselves in a position that we can't do that back and forth on a daily basis because that benefits nobody. So we will maintain a liquid base of funds at all times.
I was going to say, we have under Section 3, the general objectives, the first being safety, the second being liquidity. That's always a more paramount concern than even the interest rate. But yeah, we want to make sure that we can function.
So see, on this list, certificates of deposit, basically any financial institutions registered to do business in the state of Maryland. Does that mean you can invest in local banks? You can buy CDs in local banks?
Yes.
Because right now, local banks are offering 6-month CDs at some of the best interest rates that's out there.
Correct.
And if you did that, would you handle that through your office specifically or through this other group that you're talking about?
So the next step in this is probably to put out a request for proposals for somebody to be kind of the custodian of all these funds. So if we wanted to go to a local bank, we'd have to have some place to actually keep the deposits. But yes, we could definitely make use of local entities if we found that those rates were in line with our goals.
If you're using this firm to handle your money, how would they go to just a local bank?
Right.
I mean, would they
So this firm,
tell them that's what you wanted to do, or?
3+1 would not be handling the money. They are an advisory. We would definitely, we would have access to it, that we'd be the ones to push the buttons to make sure that happens.
So you
Is that
call
what
the
you're
bank up
asking?
and say, hey, what's your interest rate today at our savings and loan, and, we've got this much money we want to put in. Interesting story. I worked with a gentleman back in the early 70s who said his goal in life was to have a CD come due every day of the year. And he did. I thought that's a lot to keep up with.
Yes, that is. So again, we're looking at something maybe a little less frequent, more like every 3 months, that we would have a section of funds come available to us to make an investment decision. So we would, as I stated, probably not pull a trigger to invest everything the first day we would have a new policy. But we would invest with the option to start taking a look at things that have longer terms and then stagger those terms. I don't think we would do every day, sorry.
So the public is aware, Cash Vest and 3+1 is the same entity?
Yes.
Yeah. What will the next process be? I'm assuming the council is okay with this? Yep.
So I believe it just needs adoption by resolution by the council for the policy that has been provided to you.
Did you want to speak to the banking services as well?
Not at this moment.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I can if you'd like me to. We brought up to John that we started taking a look overall at all of our processes and all of our banking and all that kind of stuff. And our next, after we feel this is the most important one to get started with, the next steps will be looking at our overall banking services and who is our bank, where do we have all of our funds associated with that bank, who is our purchase card with, those kind of decisions. And so per our policies, finance would ultimately have the authority to just go out and make a change with that. I don't feel comfortable doing that because I've been approached by multiple different entities for that, and we feel it would benefit the county to actually send out an RFP to ask people to give us proposals as to if you were then to take over our payroll accounts, our AP accounts, some of our investments, our purchase cards, what would you offer to us? Because, again, I've been approached by some local banks. The local banks don't have the bandwidth to take all of our stuff. They just don't, not the size that we have. But they could potentially have the ability to take portions of it. And so I did not feel comfortable as your finance director just saying, I'm going to attach to somebody else's contract, or I'm just going to go out to another entity and say, hey, we want to go with you. I felt it's a better policy for the county to do an RFP for our banking services. So that will be the next thing. We get this passed. Hopefully, summer, fall, we will be coming to council with a recommendation for potentially changing some of our banking services.
So, benefit of some of the council members, and Pam may remember this too, when Steve Rozier was here as our internal auditor, they were doing some work out at the landfill, and it was discovered that the daily receipts at the landfill were being deposited to a bank on South Salisbury Boulevard, and they were sending 2 people to make this deposit. Do you remember this?
So we now have
We had 3 banks within a quarter of a mile of the landfill. Hopefully, we changed to one of those banks, right?
So we've actually changed to a secured agency coming and picking them up. Like we have them here. When I was with the City of Salisbury Police actually did our deposits for us. That was part of their duties. We have Brinks, and so does the landfill, has Brinks come and take our funds. So
Not doing their own deposits anymore.
no, we do not have employees from landfill and
The branch that they were using shut down.
Pardon me?
The branch that they were using shut down, so they were looking for alternatives.
Well, the argument back then was, hey, there's three banks within about a half a mile or a quarter mile of the landfill. Why are you going to South Salisbury Boulevard? You know.
So again, those would be all the services that we would consider in this banking RFP is what can you provide us for, because we still do have cash. There is still cash that flows through for ourselves and the landfill. What can you do to help us protect that the people making those deposits, and where would you take them and that kind of stuff. So again, all of that would be part of that next phase. This is what we're asking for now. We hope to be coming to you with another ask.
I will wait until we get the resolution from you on the investment policy. All right?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Entertain a motion from council to adjourn from legislative session to, from open work session to go into a closed work session. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.